Chapter 91. 3, 2, 1, 0. As soon as the time was up, Poplar Fruit ran out like a wild horse. This time, he no longer wandered on the path where few people walked. He wanted to have a fair and square confrontation with Akira Rukawa. So Poplar Fruit ran straight to the middle lane. For normal sniper players, the earlier they stood in the middle lane, the more initiative they would have. However, for snipers like Akira Rukawa, there was no such thing as first come, first served in the middle lane. This was because setting up a sniper in the middle lane was a bigger target. For a qualified sniper, changing positions after each shot was the truth. Poplar Fruit made this mistake. He had just stood in the middle lane and scoped in to wait for Akira Rukawa to appear. After a second, Poplar Fruit suddenly realized that something was wrong, but it was too late. A black shadow flashed in the upper left corner of the scope. Even with Poplar Fruit's fast reaction speed, the sniper rifle could only graze the corner of his clothes. There was no way to dodge. Poplar Fruit had just switched back to his knife when a bullet pierced his head. His body flew upside down. They had a bad start and lost the first battle. Poplar Fruit was a little depressed, but he wasn't discouraged like the others. Instead, he quietly waited for the next round to begin. It was still the middle lane, still the same gunfight, but this time, Poplar Fruit didn't stand in the middle of the road like a fool. He only peeked his head out from time to time and then retreated. Every time he peeked his head out, a bullet would follow him like a maggot. It would either hit where Poplar Fruit had just been standing, or hit the corner of the wall, making a hole and brushing past Poplar Fruit's face. Akira Rukawa's reaction speed and accuracy were obvious. Poplar Fruit retracted his head 3 times, but on the 4th time, he ducked and squatted down, using a small ramp to avoid Akira Rukawa's soul-chasing bullet. He didn't stop and immediately opened his scope. At the same time, he got up and pulled the trigger less than half a second after the scope was opened. Everyone had the same thought process. Poplar Fruit's previous 3 attempts gave Akira Rukawa the illusion that Poplar Fruit was afraid. Although he knew it was wrong, he still stopped for a moment after firing and didn't immediately retreat. This gave Poplar Fruit a chance. Poplar Fruit had an incomprehensible reaction speed. As long as he aimed and fired, no one could escape. It was the same for Akira Rukawa. Although the shot was too fast and didn't hit a vital point, the sniper rifle's bullet was set to kill in 1 shot. Please don't worry about the armor of RMB players in real life. Akira Rukawa was careless and was killed by Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's killing of Akira Rukawa was a big blow to the defenders because Akira Rukawa was ranked high in the country. He could be said to be the god of war in their hearts. How could they not panic when the god of war was killed? But for the spies, this was simply a shot of adrenaline. Finally, they didn't have to be wary of that dreamlike character anymore. Under the leadership of Poplar Fruit, the lurkers blew the horn to attack. Although Akira Rukawa was still instructing the defenders on how to defend, under the strong firepower, Point A was the first to fall. Soon after, the defenders were taken care of by Yonggwa and his little companions one by one. This round was won cleanly and neatly. After this game, the situation was very clear. This game was not so much a confrontation between the lurkers and the defenders, but rather a showdown between Poplar Fruit and Akira Rukawa. In a shootout between the two, whoever won, the other side could almost be said to have won half of the game. "You are very good." A sentence suddenly popped up on the game interface. It was Akira Rukawa's words on the public channel. Obviously, the "you" he was referring to was Poplar Fruit, who had just defeated him in a shootout. "Thank you, you are also very strong." Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and typed in response. "Again." Akira Rukawa said. His words were like gold, and he had the characteristics of a cold killer. The game started again, and the two once again came to the middle lane. Without saying anything more, they directly switched to the sniper rifle and started shooting. It was a bit like a one-on-one in basketball. The other teammates were very tacitly separated and did not create chaos for them in the middle lane. Poplar Fruit's reaction was very fast. At first, Akira Rukawa was a little flustered. He even hid behind cover for a few times before daring to come out again. However, Akira Rukawa was experienced. Although he did not dodge as fast as Poplar Fruit, his steps were very strange. 3 left, 4 right, 3 left, 3 right, 2 very irregular. Poplar Fruit found that his bullets were a little unable to keep up with his figure. Akira Rukawa was not only dodging, but he was also adapting to Poplar Fruit's shooting rhythm while silently counting down in his heart. 3, 2, 1 now. Akira Rukawa suddenly stood still and then picked up the cannon that had only fired 2 shots. When he scoped in, Poplar Fruit was hiding in the corner. The cannon was very heavy, but it did not hinder the speed of Akira Rukawa's sniper. Before Poplar Fruit could completely hide half of his body, the bullet had already caught up to him. Poplar Fruit only felt his body tremble as if he had been struck by lightning. The screen quickly dimmed. Dead. Poplar Fruit was a little surprised. He had already realized that changing bullets would bring him danger, but he still overestimated his dodging speed. Master! His strength is too strong. Poplar Fruit's eyes burst out, and his heart was boiling. It was rare to meet such a strong opponent, and it was rare to meet an opponent who could go back and forth with him and even lose more than he won. So what if he lost? I want to turn it around. Poplar Fruit's fighting spirit was even stronger. He was 120% focused. At the beginning of the next game, he stepped back into the middle lane again. Although Poplar Fruit's experience was far less than Akira Rukawa's, he had one advantage. He learned things very quickly. Akira Rukawa's footwork to dodge the bullets was dazzling, but it was not difficult for Poplar Fruit. With his extraordinary reaction and memory, Poplar Fruit could not only see clearly, but also form a three-dimensional image in his mind to simulate. At the beginning, Poplar Fruit did not have the agile body like before. Instead, he staggered like an old man. He was trying to use Akira Rukawa's method of dodging bullets. Only Poplar Fruit would practice new footwork in such a dangerous situation. Only Yonghua was able to dodge Akira Rukawa's bullets time and time again by relying on his slightly faster reaction time and time again. If it was someone else, they would not be able to learn well and might even lose themselves. However, Poplar Fruit still died. Because he had tried a few times and found that he was getting more and more proficient, and he didn't need to do extra dodging to avoid the bullets. He was a little proud, but when he was proud, he would get carried away. He kept tapping with his left hand, and one of his fingers accidentally slipped. He didn't press the right button and stayed in place. Akira Rukawa naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity. The bullet crossed time and space and penetrated Poplar Fruit's body. He helplessly fell down. Although he fell, Poplar Fruit was still in high spirits because he learned a footwork to avoid bullets. In the next game, Akira Rukawa would not be so easy. Was there a next game? No. If the lurker lost this round, Yonghua's team would also lose. The previous consecutive losses and the losses in the last few rounds had already reached the point where the game was over. Poplar Fruit was not willing to give up. He just exited the game and returned to the game interface. He typed a string of words, "Akira Rukawa, let's play another game?" Okay. Akira Rukawa responded readily. They were evenly matched. How could he not think the same? Not everyone was like Poplar Fruit, who was not afraid in the face of Akira Rukawa's tricky sniper rifle. Many lurkers left the room. After seeing a few defenders leave, Poplar Fruit's teammates jumped to the opposite side to hug their thighs. However, this was not important. Poplar Fruit did not care about the strength of his teammates or the other players in the enemy camp. He just wanted to fight Akira Rukawa to his heart's content. It was the same as the previous game. Poplar Fruit and Akira Rukawa fought happily in the middle lane. There were also some players who did not understand the situation and wanted to sneak attack in the middle lane. However, Poplar Fruit and Akira Rukawa would not let them do as they wished. When someone came, the two of them tacitly put down their guns and let the other side have the time to deal with the troublemaker. Yonghua discovered that the footwork he had just learned to dodge bullets not only gave him the convenience of dodging bullets, but also gave him a kind of reverse thinking. In the past, when he played with sniper rifles, the opponents he encountered rarely used their brains to think about what to do during micromaneuvers. They relied more on their instincts to control their characters. Therefore, when they dodged bullets, their movements were wide and wide. This allowed the sniper to often have a good effect when he sniped them. However, it was different when it came to players who knew how to dodge bullets. For example, Akira Rukawa had a completely different pattern when he moved left and right. It made it difficult to grasp the frequency of aiming with a sniper rifle, and the bullets would often miss. In this way, Poplar Fruit figured out a kind of reverse aiming method. He forced himself not to follow his usual thinking, but to change the direction of the sniper rifle. This way of playing made him feel very awkward, but the effect was surprisingly good. Since the second game of this game, Akira Rukawa had not been able to avoid Poplar Fruit's reverse sniping for 3 consecutive games. His consecutive losses surprised his teammates. Was this still the Sniper King, Akira Rukawa, who had just defeated the Lurker? Akira Rukawa realized that something was wrong and began to play steadily. He did not want to fight to the death with Poplar Fruit in the middle lane anymore. But how could it be that simple? At this time, Poplar Fruit had completely recovered, and was even much better than before. How could the crazy Poplar Fruit be avoided just because he wanted to? Poplar Fruit was not only constantly flick sniping and flash sniping, but also used blind sniping to kill an opponent using an M4A1 in close combat in special terrain. 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. The defenders were getting more and more listless, and they could not find the rhythm anymore. On the other hand, the Lurker was jubilant. The enemy was suppressed by their own sniper, and victory was in sight. But it was too early for them to be happy. Hey, where's Hero Condor? In the next game, the teammates realized that Poplar Fruit's character was standing still. Their charge was like a spear without a spear, and they could no longer break the game. We were about to win. Why did he disappear? Song Jiwen looked at the empty seat and typed helplessly. He went to answer a call. The whole team was cursing and swearing, and even Song Jiwen was complaining in his heart. Poplar Fruit, you're cheating us. This is the last public chapter. Xiaohan was still very sincere. Before the novel was published, he had already posted all the plots that everyone didn't like. As for the paid chapters, everyone could rest assured and read them. Xiaohan promised that there wouldn't be any more games or basketball plots. After writing for so long, the book was finally published. To Xiaohan, this book was like Kiki to Poplar Fruit. It was his treasure, and Xiaohan will work hard to make it even more exciting. I hope everyone will support him. Looking for first order, looking for recommendations, all kinds of requests, !Omega. Chapter 92. Even though everyone was looking forward to it, Poplar Fruit never returned. Everyone was desperately trying to break through the defense line, but the tragic ending was already set in stone. The defense line had successfully turned the tables. Tricking a teammate was a matter that would make both humans and gods angry, but Yang Wu didn't have the time to repent for his mistakes. He had just received a call from Zhang Yujie from Beijing and found out that sect leader Qiao's autobiography was currently at the cusp of a storm. If they didn't handle it well, then they would face a truly tragic failure. Zhang Yujie's voice on the phone was trembling. It took her half an hour to explain the situation clearly. It turned out that a violent storm of public opinion had suddenly erupted on the internet this afternoon. On Weibo and forums, there were reposts of information about Poplar Fruit and the other translators. That's right, Poplar Fruit's age and qualifications had become the main target of the Internet Water Army's vicious attacks. Especially Poplar Fruit. When he submitted his resume, he didn't fill in his qualifications at Shinda Company. Therefore, he was still the same as he was half a year ago. He graduated from his undergraduate degree with mediocre grades. He didn't have any translation qualifications or experience as an independent translator. After working for a year, he left his job and stayed at home. The biography of a famous person that millions of people were looking forward to was actually translated by someone with such mediocre qualifications. It was really shocking. Not only that, but looking at the other people in the translation team, none of them were professional translators. One of them was even a science and engineering student. How could such a translation be convincing? At first, it was the Internet Water Army that came out of nowhere spreading the news. However, the news they brought out was really impeccable. There were even photos of Dongxin Publishing's stamped letter of appointment. Everyone accepted the news with some skepticism. Then, more and more fruit fans and sect leader Qiao's fans began to abuse and vent. Their love for Apple and for Leader Qiao was so deep that they could not accept anyone tarnishing anything related to Leader Qiao in the slightest. Not only did they question Popular Fruit online, but they also expressed deep disappointment in Dongxin Publishing. They had already linked Popular Fruit's low qualifications to the quality of his works. Some people even said on the internet, if you don't want to do it well, then don't accept it. You've translated it into a lousy work, and you still want us to pay for it? I'm telling you, I'm not buying any more. Cancel the order. Under the instigation of a small group of people, there really were a lot of cancellations on the major online bookstores. The incident only lasted for one afternoon and one night, but the situation had become very bad. Whether it was Zhang Yujie or the management of Dongxin, they could not sit still anymore. They had to take action. The public relations department was taking action. Zhang Yujie finished the meeting in the middle of the night. She didn't have time to worry about disturbing Popular Fruit. She quickly dialed Popular Fruit's mobile phone and talked to Popular Fruit. Popular Fruit didn't know that his resume would drag everyone into such an awkward situation, but he understood that this was not the time to regret and reflect, nor was it the time to find out who leaked the secret. The most important thing now was to respond. He calmly comforted Zhang Yujie, who was a little flustered, and then said gently, "What do you need me to do?" Zhang Yujie hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "Can you come to Beijing? I want to hold a press conference to clarify in public." "Okay, no problem." Popular Fruit answered firmly. The remuneration for the translation of sect leader Qiao's biography had been transferred to his card, which meant that whether the book sold well or not, it had nothing to do with him in terms of profit. But for Popular Fruit, this book was like his own child. He wanted to protect it, just like how he protected Kiki. It was just a press conference, and Popular Fruit was not afraid of those who questioned him. He wanted to prove to those who spread rumors and looked down on him that they were all wrong. After hanging up the phone, Popular Fruit pondered for a moment, then he clapped his hands and stood up with a smile. Popular Fruit was confident that he could deal with their doubts during the press conference. He would deal with whatever came his way. It was useless to be anxious now. Don't think that Popular Fruit stopped learning after taking on all kinds of translation tasks. He still took some time out every day to further his studies. Although he didn't have time to learn other foreign languages in the past 2 months, in order to do better, he bought a lot of translation masters' works and theory books to read. It could be said that his understanding of English was getting deeper and deeper. On the other hand, after Zhang Yujie put down the phone, she could not calm down for a long time. Although things were not so bad that they could not be salvaged, she did not expect something like this to happen. Before this, the company had always emphasized confidentiality. So, even under the close attention of the media, other than the recruitment notice for translators posted on the translation website, the situation of sect leader Qiao's biography was not known to the outside world. But just a few days before the official release of the biography, the information of the translation team, which had been hidden under the cover, was exposed at such a critical time. It was not difficult to see that this was not a coincidence. There was definitely a mastermind behind this. It was just that they did not know whether the target of this incident was Dongxin Publishing or Zhang Yujie and the power behind her. No matter who the target was, Zhang Yujie would not give up. She picked up her phone again, walked into the office, closed the door, and dialed a number that she did not often call. When she returned to the study, Song Jiwen rushed over and grabbed Popular Fruit's neck angrily. He swung Popular Fruit around like a noodle. "Damn it, Lao Gua, do you have to be such a scammer? You took a phone call for half an hour and left all of us there. We were having a good time and were about to win, but in the end, the tables were turned. You are a scammer." Song Jiwen's anger level was off the charts. Hey, I have urgent matters." Yang Gua was shaken so much that she couldn't speak clearly. "Stop shaking me." Under Popular Fruit's apology and begging, Song Jiwen finally let him go. "I need to go to Beijing," Popular Fruit said after he steadied himself and straightened out his clothes. Looking at Song Jiwen's puzzled expression, Poplar Fruit explained, "Sect leader Chao's book has some problems." Poplar Fruit briefly explained the matter. Song Jiwen had already thrown his unhappiness to the back of his mind. His face was full of worry as he said, "Can you hurry over now? You have to know that public opinion is very scary. If you don't handle it well, those people on the internet can drown you with their saliva." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Since this matter has already happened, running away will not solve the problem. I have to face it and stand up to answer everyone's questions." He suddenly used his fist to lightly hit the wall. His eyes were full of confidence as he said, "The more they panic, the more I have to let them know that I am not the idiot they think I am. Don't worry. It's just a piece of cake." Chapter 93. After getting off the plane, Poplar Fruit carried his bag and went to retrieve the large luggage. Although it was heavy, it was nothing to Poplar Fruit, not to mention that it was pulled by a lever. Walking out of the corridor, the coldness of the airport's air conditioner brushed against their faces. Poplar Fruit quickly covered Kiki's body with clothes. It was easy for her to catch a cold due to sudden changes in temperature. Kiki had just recovered from her cold, and her body was still very weak. It was not good for her to have a relapse. Kiki, who was not sleepy, was very energetic. She sat in her father's arms and looked around. It was a new environment, and it seemed to be different from where she lived. The air, the clothes, and the appearance of people. Kiki's big round eyes rolled around, and no one knew what she was thinking. "Lie down, lie down." Kiki waved her small hands and called out in a strange tone, "You have to call me Dad, understand? Dad, Dad." Poplar Fruit pulled the luggage forward and educated his daughter. The young-style recorder began to loop again. However, the teaching mode did not last long. Poplar Fruit saw Zhang Yujie, who came to pick them up from the airport. Wearing a black leather jacket and black trousers, Zhang Yujie stood there gracefully with her hands crossed in front of her chest. She was very tall even without wearing high heels. Her eyes could not be seen, but under her short hair, her delicate face was as cold as ice. This queen-like demeanor made many men who wanted to hit on her shrink back. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He had not seen Zhang Yujie for a few days. How did her aura change? It was like a strengthened version of Duan Xueqing. Could it be that the two of them had merged? However, their coldness was not of the same type. Duan Xueqing's coldness was an innate coldness, like a snow lotus on an iceberg, aloof from the world and untainted by the mortal world. On the other hand, Zhang Yujie's coldness was a coldness that was a mixture of pride and indifference. Perhaps this had something to do with her childhood experience. She could be so confident that she despised everything, as if she was the queen and the world should crawl under her feet. Seeing Poplar Fruit, Zhang Yujie calmed down a little. She wanted to take the luggage from Poplar Fruit, but how could Poplar Fruit agree? He was not even willing to give her the small bag in his hand. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "You can lead the way." Zhang Yujie stuck out her nose at him and shook her head handsomely as she led the way. Her long and slender legs were like pendulum clocks as she walked in large strides. In an instant, she had pulled a long distance ahead of her. Yonghua could only smile bitterly as he jogged behind her. Could it be that Zhang Yujie's period came today? She was so irritable. It was better not to provoke her. Zhang Yujie was driving a white Maserati. The slender body of the car was very beautiful. It had an unusually distinct sport style and was decorated with a high-profile Trident logo. It attracted the attention of passers-by. The luxurious interior of the car dazzled Poplar Fruit, but the most unforgettable thing was the sound of the twin-turbocharged engine when it started. It could make any man's blood boil. Even Poplar Fruit, who did not know much about cars, had the urge to play with it. After driving for a while, Poplar Fruit found out the reason for Zhang Yujie's bad mood. It turned out that during the few hours that Poplar Fruit was flying in the air, the Internet Water Army had finally revealed their trump card. They revealed information about Zhang Yujie, who was the deputy editor and the manager of the book's publishing project. They vaguely told the netizens that Zhang Yujie's family background was very strong, and that she had obtained her current position through improper relations. However, she had no ability, and stubbornly chose a group of hotheads to translate the book, which led to the failure of sect leader Chao's autobiography. When creating a rumor, it had to be 30% true and 70% false. It was difficult to distinguish the truth from the lies, and it was the easiest to fool people. The netizens were convinced by this statement, and the spearhead of the crusade began to be pointed at Zhang Yujie. At this time, even a fool would understand that the real target of the whole incident was Zhang Yujie, not the book or anyone else. Zhang Yujie was not worried. She did not have the panic that she had when the public opinion exploded yesterday. Faced with the water army that would not rest until they had tarnished her reputation, Zhang Yujie calmed down. With a high position, one would inevitably become the target of public criticism. If one could not even handle a little bit of doubt or a little crisis, one would not be able to stay in that position for long. This was what Zhang Yujie's grandfather, who was in a high position, had said before. Although people from big families lived like princes in material matters, they were still influenced by the ups and downs of politics, even if they had not experienced it. Compared to the bitter struggle of the upper echelons, this little disturbance was really nothing. Zhang Yujie secretly cheered herself on. Wasn't it just the voices of others who were questioning her? She would definitely be able to get through it. The reason why she maintained confidence in herself was actually that she did not do anything wrong in this matter. It could even be said that her efforts were unimaginable. Not to mention that she used her family's connections to promote the publication of this book. Just the fact that Zhang Yujie worked day and night, working overtime, and doing her best to work on this book made her colleagues admire her. This was also the reason why her colleagues were still unswervingly supporting her since the incident broke out. Zhang Yujie had a rough guess about the person behind the scenes, but what was done could not be undone. The most important thing now was to solve the current crisis of public opinion that was getting more and more intense. As for the person behind the scenes, it would not be too late to slowly settle the score after this matter was over. For the next few days, you should stay in the hotel first. I have booked a room for you. Zhang Yujie glanced at Poplar Fruit from the rearview mirror, who was feeling around in the back seat. Okay. Poplar Fruit nodded in response. He was attracted by this car. In the past, he had only seen pictures of Maserati on the computer. Who would have thought that he would have the opportunity to sit in it? After this matter is settled, I will accompany you to walk around Beijing. I am too busy now. Zhang Yujie said. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, You don't have to accompany me. I am not here to play. Moreover, you have a lot of things to do. Just do whatever you want. Don't worry. In a place like the old capital, if you go out and walk around, you will either be tricked or lost. If I don't accompany you, who will save you when the time comes? Zhang Yujie said with her nose wrinkled. Ha ha ha. Poplar Fruit could only laugh dryly in response to Zhang Yujie's words. Do you like this car? Zhang Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit's infatuated face and asked. I like it. It is too beautiful. Poplar Fruit said without raising his head while drooling and touching the two-colored leather seat. Kiki's chest was pressed down by her father's chin. She felt very uncomfortable and angrily cried out a few times. She also forcefully patted her father's chest. Ouch, Kiki, use less strength. Poplar Fruit didn't feel much pain, but the feeling of his heart being shaken was still somewhat uncomfortable. He straightened up, grabbed Kiki's small fist, put it to his mouth and made a biting motion. He then stared at her and said, Don't be so violent, do you hear me? In the future, if you hit Daddy again, Daddy will eat you. Kiki didn't hold back and stared at him. However, a smile slowly appeared on her face and she completely ignored her father's threat. Poplar Fruit was angry and amused. He really didn't know what to do with her. Then you can drive this car for the next few days. I still have a car. Zhang Yujie said. Poplar Fruit was surprised and said with a smile, No need. I have to take care of the child now. It is inconvenient to drive. I will just take a taxi. It is not that easy to call a taxi in Beijing. Zhang Yujie said. It is okay. There must be a lot of taxis next to the hotel. Besides, even if you drive for me, I am not familiar with the roads in Beijing. Poplar Fruit laughed. If you don't want it, then forget it. Really, I only let you play with it because you like it so much. Zhang Yujie pouted and said. This car was indeed her favorite. Not to mention her friends, even her younger brother had not been able to touch this car of hers. Seeing this, Poplar Fruit quickly moved his head through the gap in the middle and said with a smile, Don't be angry. I appreciate your kindness. I like this car very much, but I really can't drive it. Why don't you drive me around more in the future? Zhang Yujie patted him on the head, and a smile appeared on her lips under the sunglasses. Her cold face softened as if ice and snow had just melted. She said angrily, Who wants to be your driver? When the time comes, you will drive for me. When they arrived at the hotel, Poplar Fruit had never heard of the name Beijing Guest Hotel. However, he found that Zhang Yujie had booked a very luxurious suite for him. It cost 888 yuan a day. Poplar Fruit pulled her and said, Yujie, why did you book such an expensive room? You could have just booked a single room. If I tell you to stay, then stay. Zhang Yujie, who took off her sunglasses, glared at him and said, This is the hotel we booked. We don't need to spend so much money to book a room. Don't worry. Poplar Fruit had to follow her in. The waiter behind them helped to drag the suitcase in. This luxurious suite had a living room and a bedroom. The living room was filled with exquisite furniture. There was also a table for guests to order food in the room. Pulling open the curtains of the living room, Poplar Fruit found that this was a floor-to-ceiling window wall. Looking out from the 16th floor, he felt that the scenery of Beijing was bustling and lively. If he looked at it again at night, it would be a beautiful night scene painted with neon lights. After sending the waiter away, Zhang Yujie said, I will arrange a press conference tomorrow. What do you think? Is it too late to prepare? Poplar Fruit pointed to his head and said with a smile, No problem. All the questions they will ask and what I want to say are already here. Well, at that time, I will arrange a session for you to answer a question from a professor from Beijing Foreign Studies University. I will show you the outline tonight. You should also prepare how to answer it. Zhang Yujie said. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Poplar Fruit. She was worried that Poplar Fruit would be unhappy with her arrangement. Poplar Fruit noticed her expression. He smiled and said, Don't worry. Leave the press conference to me. You have to have confidence in me. Chapter 94. Zhang Yujie sat down on the sofa and leaned against Poplar Fruit. She put her hands on her knees and straightened her legs, looking like she was stretching. She said, I have faith in you. I always have. Yes, Zhang Yujie had pinned all her hopes on Poplar Fruit. Although she didn't say it, she was hoping that Poplar Fruit would be like a fairy tale, riding a white horse from afar and saving her from the fire and water. After sending the waiter away, Poplar Fruit started to pack up, but Zhang Yujie wasn't in a hurry to leave. She poured herself a glass of water and then buried herself in the soft sofa again. She looked at Poplar Fruit with satisfaction and sweetness as he took out the things in the big suitcase one by one. Zhang Yujie felt that she was a little infatuated with the feeling of being by Poplar Fruit's side. She didn't know why, but as long as Poplar Fruit was by her side, she would feel especially at ease and her thoughts would be very clear. No matter how many grievances she went through outside, no matter how much wind and rain she went through, when she saw Poplar Fruit, all the negative emotions would vanish. Yes, his face was so handsome, his voice was so gentle, his chest was so broad, and even the way he carried things was so charming. She really liked the way he bent down and stood up. Milk powder, diapers, diapers, children's clothes, children's clothes, children's clothes. No. Why were they all children's things? Zhang Yujie felt that something was wrong. She stood up and strode over to Poplar Fruit's side and peeked her head out to look at the suitcase. Kiki, who was on Poplar Fruit's back, was startled by her quick movements. Kiki looked up in surprise and stared at her blankly. Where are your clothes? Zhang Yujie stared at Poplar Fruit and asked. Aren't my clothes there? Poplar Fruit gestured with his hand and pointed at a small pile of clothes at the back of the big suitcase. Zhang Yujie lowered her head and covered her forehead with her left hand. Her head was full of black lines. She shouted in a low voice, "Yong Xiaogua, I'm asking you, where's your formal wear?" She almost pulled her hair and went crazy. Can't I wear casual wear?" Poplar Fruit said, blushing with shame. He did have a set of formal wear, which was the one he wore to the blind date. However, one day when he was feeding Chi-Chi, he accidentally knocked it over and spilled milk all over it. He didn't have the time to dry clean it, so it was covered in white stains. Moreover, this formal wear didn't fit him anymore. Yonghua thought that he wouldn't have many chances to wear it, so he didn't wash it. Thus, he didn't bring it with him this time. Of course not. Zhang Yujie really wanted to pinch Poplar Fruit's ears to see what was in his head. Who had he seen wearing wrinkled casual pants at a press conference? "Let's go, I'll take you to buy clothes." Alright, Zhang Yujie found that she couldn't just leave him like this. Thus, she pulled Poplar Fruit out of the door without any explanation. Driving her flashy Maserati, she did a beautiful drift around the corner and found a parking lot to park her car. The two of them took a Shao-Duan road before arriving at their destination, Jiji Building. It was a large building that occupied a vast area. Looking from afar, it looked like a majestic castle. It occupied 2 streets, and both sides were surrounded by slightly undulating, wavy walls made of glass. The front of the building was at the corner of the street, and the signboard was hung big, with the words, "Latte in Time Department Store," written on it. "Let's go." Zhang Yujie pulled Poplar Fruit's hand and dragged him forward. In order to keep up with her, Poplar Fruit had to give up looking left and right and strode forward. Although the two of them were walking parallel to each other, Zhang Yujie didn't have the slightest intention of letting go. She still used her warm and soft hand to hold Poplar Fruit's 4 fingers and pretended to walk forward naturally. However, her shoulders were very stiff. If someone paid attention, they would be able to see through her thoughts. Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention. He saw that there were many clothing stores in the building, and many of them were selling suits. He asked curiously, "Yujie, there's something to buy over there. Let's go there?" "We're not going to those cheap stores." Zhang Yujie took a look and pulled Poplar Fruit. "Let's go upstairs." "Cheap." Poplar Fruit thought as a drop of cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Looking at the decorations of those stores, it would cost at least a few thousand yuan to walk in. If this was considered cheap, then what level of quality would the non-cheap stores be? Being pulled by Zhang Yujie, Poplar Fruit could only blindly follow behind. The two of them came to a very fashionable clothing store. The store was very large, so large that one could hang a large piece of clothing. Bright lights shone in every corner. Only when one walked in could they feel the elegance of the layout. "What kind of store is this?" "Gucci." "Gucci doesn't seem to be a brand like this. 4G letters around a square." Also, wasn't Gucci supposed to be selling bags? Although Poplar Fruit had read a lot of books, he really didn't know anything about fashion. Or rather, his understanding of fashion only existed on the surface. In order not to expose his ignorance, Poplar Fruit quietly pulled up a piece of clothing and looked at the label. Givenchy. Oh, Poplar Fruit understood. It was Givenchy. It was a French brand. He had read about it when he was learning French. But it seemed that Givenchy was very expensive. Poplar Fruit remembered that it was one of the top brands in the fashion industry. Moreover, it was a big foreign brand. How could it be cheap? Zhang Yujie saw him looking at the clothes and explained to him, "Don't be fooled by these clothes. These suits are very nice. Armani's clothes are too businesslike. I don't think you're an old man, so you shouldn't dress so lifelessly. Givenchy is more lively. It's good that it's expensive. It looks good and comfortable. The big brands are very particular about the materials they use. You don't have to worry about money. This time, Big Sister will pay for all your expenses. Moreover, I have a platinum membership card from Givenchy. 20% off." Zhang Yujie waved her finger in front of Poplar Fruit. Where's my card?" She wanted to take out her platinum membership card to show Poplar Fruit, but she couldn't find it in her bag for a long time. Zhang Yujie was obviously a regular customer of this store. When she walked in, the store manager replaced the other sales ladies to welcome her. The manager was a beautiful woman in her 30s. She was dressed very maturely. When she walked, her tight skirt wrapped around her perky buttocks shook slightly. It made people feel that the surrounding air was heating up. "Little sister Yujie, you haven't been here for a month. I missed you so much." The manager held Zhang Yujie's hand and said affectionately. When she saw Poplar Fruit carrying a baby, her eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. However, she concealed it very well. She didn't even show any curiosity about Poplar Fruit's identity, showing excellent professionalism. "Aya, Big Sister Fong, it's great that you're here. I don't even know who took my platinum membership card." Zhang Yujie laughed. "Look at what you're saying. Isn't the card just a symbol? If I'm not in the store, people won't recognize you? I say, you can come whenever you want in the future. Don't worry about not bringing your card. Your appearance is the proof." The manager called Big Sister Fong rebuked. She chatted happily with Zhang Yujie. She even asked the girls under her to bring water to Poplar Fruit, not neglecting him. Zhang Yujie smiled and introduced them to each other. "Big Sister Fong, this is Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit, this is Fong Min, Big Sister Fong. She's a good friend of mine and the manager of this store." She didn't know whether it was intentional or not, but she didn't introduce her relationship with Poplar Fruit like she did with Fong Min. After greeting each other, Zhang Yujie pulled Fong Min and asked her to find the best suit for Poplar Fruit. Fong Min covered her mouth and laughed. "No problem, little sister Yujie. Just wait. I'll find him the most handsome suit." Yonghua listened to her instructions and handed Chi-Chi, who was sleeping soundly on her back, to Zhang Yujie to take care of. She then stood up and followed Fong Min to the men's section. "Wow, you're so tall," Fong Min said exaggeratedly. If she didn't stand up straight, she wouldn't know. Poplar Fruit was really tall. She used her hand to compare the height of her head to Poplar Fruit and found that she just reached Poplar Fruit's chest. Fong Min's figure was more like a southerner. She estimated that she was about 1.6 meters tall and wore a pair of high heels that were about 7 or 8 centimeters high. Compared to Poplar Fruit, who was now 1.87 meters tall, she was still more than 20 centimeters short. When Fong Min compared their height, she was almost leaning on Poplar Fruit. Although Poplar Fruit didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it, Zhang Yujie was a little unhappy. Her eyes were fixed on Fong Min's chest that was pressed against Poplar Fruit's, and her face showed signs of turning cloudy. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Fong Min's action was a little exaggerated, but she had an ulterior motive. When she saw Zhang Yujie's nervous expression, there was a flash of pride and understanding in her eyes. Sure enough, there was a girl involved. Of course, she didn't dare to play too much. After getting the information she was curious about, she immediately distanced herself from Poplar Fruit and started to arrange clothes for Poplar Fruit with a serious face. This made Zhang Yujie's tense expression ease up. She hugged Kiki and watched quietly from the side. "What size clothes do you wear?" Fong Min asked. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said awkwardly, "I forgot." He really didn't know. Previously, when he was growing taller, many of the clothes he bought didn't fit him. Later on, he deliberately bought a bigger size and wore them loosely. Slowly, they fit him. In the 2 months that he had been translating sect leader Chao's autobiography, Poplar Fruit's height slowly stabilized. However, after he stopped growing, Poplar Fruit didn't buy any new clothes. Fong Min looked at him speechlessly and thought, could it be that he's a young master from some family? He doesn't even know how to buy clothes. But that can't be right. How can a young master wear clothes from a street stall? Of course, Fong Min didn't show her unspoken criticism on her face. She still smiled and picked out a few clothes from a row, then compared them with Poplar Fruit's upper body. Finally, Fong Min picked out a pure white base. The collar, sleeves, and buttons were embroidered with unique patterns. It looked simple and elegant. She also found a suitable pair of black trousers and a belt. She smiled and said, "Go change into this shirt first. Put on the shirt, then I'll find a suit for you." Chapter 95. Wow! This was a cry that was suppressed from the bottom of her heart. Oh! This was a scream that was hidden deep in her throat. At this moment, the Givenchy store was completely silent. Whether it was the other salesladies, Fong Min, or Zhang Yujie, they all stopped chatting and became quiet. Their attention was attracted by Poplar Fruit, who had just changed his clothes and walked out of the changing room. So handsome! How come he looks like a completely different person after changing his clothes? The saying, "Clothes make the man, and Buddha makes the man," was vividly reflected on Poplar Fruit. Previously, when Poplar Fruit was wearing a loose and wrinkled casual outfit, he looked like a middle-aged uncle who had just finished his meal and was going out to enjoy the cool air. No one wanted to take a second look at him. But now, after changing his shirt and trousers, he looked a lot more refreshed. The fashionable and slim-fit shirt showed off Poplar Fruit's thin but well-defined body. Although the black trousers were not paired with bright leather shoes, it did not prevent Poplar Fruit from showing off his extraordinarily long legs. Poplar Fruit's face was not particularly handsome, but it was the kind of face that was more attractive the more you looked at it. His face was very chiseled, as if it was carved by a knife and an axe. Perhaps because he had lived in the countryside since he was a child, he was born with a light bronze complexion, which made him look very masculine. Especially his eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky, made people unable to look away. For a moment, the women in the store could only stare at him, speechless. "How is it? Do I look good?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Bien, très bien." "Bravo, bravo!" exclaimed a tall, burly foreign old man, accompanied by a short, Asian-looking young woman, clapping his hands as he walked through the door. The foreign old man's loud voice also woke the women up. They all turned their heads to see who this person was. The first one to react was Fong Min. She pulled the corner of her clothes, hurried forward, and said respectfully, "Hello, Mr. Artil. I didn't notice you were here. I'm really sorry." The short young lady looked at the old foreigner named Artil and said something in her mind. It was French. Among the people present, perhaps only Poplar Fruit could understand it. It turned out that this young lady was a translator. She had just translated Fong Min's words for Artil. Artil said something with a smile. After the young lady finished listening, she turned to Fong Min and translated, "You don't have to apologize. You are doing a good job by greeting the guests. I came here on a whim." Artil said a few more words, and the young girl translated, "I want to talk to your guest. Please don't mind." Fong Min hurriedly stepped aside and said with a smile, "I don't care. Why would I care? It's our honor to have Mr. Artil personally guide us in our work." The young lady translated Fong Min's words, but Artil didn't say much to her. He went directly to Poplar Fruit and said, "Hello, young gentleman. I'm a designer in Givenchy. It's an honor to meet you." Poplar Fruit reached out to stop the young lady who was about to translate for him. He nodded to her with a smile and said, "You don't have to translate for me. I can understand." He looked at Artil, whose hair was a little gray but still energetic. He reached out his hand with a smile and said to him in French, "Mr. Artil, nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lion, Poplar Fruit. My Chinese name is Poplar Fruit. I'm currently a translator." Poplar Fruit's French was very fluent. If one closed their eyes, perhaps no one would be able to tell that such fluent French was spoken by a non-native speaker. Zhang Yujie and the young female translator were all shocked by what they had seen. Zhang Yujie knew that Poplar Fruit didn't only know English, but she didn't expect that Poplar Fruit could speak other languages so well. Artil was also shocked by Poplar Fruit's spoken language. He praised sincerely, "Mr. Lion, your French is very standard." Why did he praise him like that? Because Artil's French wasn't as standard as Poplar Fruit's. There were also dialects in French. For example, Poplar Fruit's French was like Mandarin to Chinese. It was the authentic official French pronunciation. In Bali, not a typo. All the French people born and raised in France pronounced it this way. Artil, on the other hand, was probably born in Normandy. His accent was thick with the tone of the Norman dialect. He asked curiously, "Mr. Lyon, are you a Chinese who grew up in France?" Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Thank you for your compliment. I didn't grow up in France, and I haven't been to France, although I've admired it for a long time." "Then you must go and have a look in the future. France is a beautiful and romantic country," Artil said with emotion. "You've never been to France, but you can speak French so well. It's really amazing." "You're flattering me," Poplar Fruit said modestly. "It's all thanks to my teacher. He's a very good language teacher in Paris." The online friend he used to practice speaking was indeed a language teacher, and his French was very pure. However, Poplar Fruit didn't know if he was good at teaching his students. The two of them chatted happily. Zhang Yujie also pulled Fong Min aside and whispered, "Who is this foreigner?" "He's a very good designer. His full name is Artil Giovanni. Givenchy is a member of the family that founded Givenchy. Although he's not the chief designer, he's in charge of the men's apparel in Asia. He's also a big boss." Fong Min's voice was very low. "That's amazing." Zhang Yujie covered her mouth and exclaimed in a low voice. "Back to the topic," Artil said to Poplar Fruit seriously. "Mr. Lyon, I don't know if you're interested in being a model. You're the tallest and most Asian man I've ever seen. If you're willing, I can make you the most attractive Asian male model in the fashion industry." Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. Only then did he understand that the old man was interested in his appearance. He pondered for a moment, looked at Artil, and said with a smile, "Mr. Artil, you're flattering me. I'm really grateful for your appreciation, but I like my current life very much. I don't want to enter the modeling industry." "That's a pity," Artil sighed regretfully, and then said, "You're really good. If you become our model or even our spokesperson, Givenchy's men's clothing will definitely be popular all over Asia." "Haha, Mr. Artil, you're exaggerating," Yonghua laughed. "Givenchy is a century-old brand. It's not because of models, but because of design masters like you. Givenchy has always insisted on the 4G design concept of genteel, grace, gaiety, and Givenchy, which refers to the gentlemanly style of the founder of Givenchy. I think that's the key to Givenchy's success." Most of what Yonghua said was based on the information she had read about Givenchy in the past. However, flattery won't get through. Yonghua's compliment had struck a chord in Givenchy's heart. The happiest thing for Givenchy was that there was someone who could agree with the fashion concept his idol uncle had established when he single-handedly founded this big brand. "I didn't expect you to know so much about Givenchy," Artil smiled happily. "I've talked to a lot of Chinese people. They know the latest fashion trends very well, but they don't care about the classics. You're really good." To be honest, he didn't care about fashion, and he didn't know what the so-called classics were. The reason he could speak so fluently was that he had read a lot of French information on the internet, many of which introduced the fashion industry that French people were most proud of. As a result, he had memorized a lot of other people's comments and research on Givenchy. Poplar Fruit hadn't spoken French for a while. It was rare for him to meet a Frenchman, so he took the opportunity to chat with him. Therefore, he racked his brains to search for information about Givenchy in his memory to cater to Artil's topic. "Mr. Artil, I've always been interested in the story of how Mr. Givenchy easily turned the situation around when he was attacked by many famous fashion brands from Italy in the 1950s. I can't find any news about that on the internet anymore. Can you answer my questions?" Yonghua asked. "Yes, Mr. Artil," Yonghua said. "Of course, no problem. It's like this, at that time." The more Artil talked, the happier he became. Looking at his beaming face, in his mind, the friendship between Mr. Givenchy and Ms. Audrey Hepburn was the most important turning point of Givenchy's fame in the world. Therefore, when talking about this matter, Artil seemed to have endless things to share with Poplar Fruit. The two of them chatted for more than 10 minutes before Artil remembered that Poplar Fruit wanted to buy clothes. He took Poplar Fruit's hand and insisted on customizing a suit for Poplar Fruit. Yang felt very honored to be chosen by a fashion designer from Givenchy. However, time waits for no one. Artel seemed to want to do everything by himself, from the design to the tailoring. Yang had to tell him that the suit would be used tomorrow, and it was too late to order it. She had no choice but to tell him that the suit would be used tomorrow. Artel sighed. He also knew that according to his meticulous character, he would never allow his work to be done so easily. Therefore, he had to give up. However, he still did it himself, looking for clothes for Poplar Fruit. The 7 employees in the store, including Fong Min, were all ordered by him. One set of clothes after another was taken out from the inner warehouse. Although Poplar Fruit was dazzled by the variety of clothes and thought that every one of them was very good, Artel was still not satisfied. Chapter 96. As the manager of a big store, Fong Min was not an embroidered pillow. She rolled her eyes and came up with an idea. She pulled the female interpreter aside and asked her to translate for her. "Mr. Artel, your award-winning suit design from 3 years ago is on display in our store. We have also prepared some samples for customers to try. Would you like to take them out and try them on?" "Yes, take them out quickly." Artel's eyes lit up. He urged Fong Min to take them out eagerly, but he was a little worried. "Are there any suitable ones?" Among the clothes that he had just tried on, there were not many that were suitable for Poplar Fruit's figure, and they were not what Artel wanted. This was one of the reasons why Artel was a little unhappy. The new suit was one of Artel's proudest works. Artel, who had been immersed in Asian fashion design all his life, had won the Golden Scissors Award in the Bali Fashion Show 3 years ago with the design of this suit. This was also the first time that Asian fashion designers had stood at the top of the world in a top suit design competition. It was a big breakthrough that even the industry insiders were in awe of. This suit was not fancy, just like the calm and introverted character of Asians. Its design was more retro, but it was not just a classic. It had its own great breakthrough. The special dark pattern on the leader's mouth made the whole suit look very youthful and fashionable. The overall simple design was not simple. It was a bit like Sir Chiao's iPhone. There was no complicated design, but everyone who picked it up could clearly feel its elegance. Poplar Fruit liked it at first sight. He was not a person who liked to show off, and the low-key pattern design was very beautiful. What was more fortunate was that there was a set of samples that matched Poplar Fruit's size very well. After trying it on, Poplar Fruit was satisfied. Except for a little flaw at the trouser leg and the waist, everything else was perfect. Poplar Fruit did not care. The trouser leg could be made shorter, and the waist was a little loose, which was within the tolerable range. But for the extremely picky Artel, this flaw was intolerable. He gestured with his hand as he shook his head. He still felt that this suit was a little outdated. After all, it was his work from 3 years ago. However, he didn't have a better choice at the moment. Artel looked at him for a long time and nodded reluctantly. However, Artel didn't give the suit to Poplar Fruit just like that. He took the suit from Poplar Fruit, who had just changed his clothes. After saying that, he buried his head in the tailoring room. "Let me help you change it. It can be made even better." Poplar Fruit and the others looked at each other, then sat down and waited for Artel to change his clothes. Although it would take some time, Yang still admired Artel's perfectionist attitude very much. In fact, when he was working as a translator, he was also like this. Hugging Kiki, Zhang Yujie poked Poplar Fruit's waist with her finger and whispered, "Poplar Fruit, do you know that you've struck gold?" What do you mean?" Poplar Fruit took a piece of tissue from the table next to him, took Kiki from Zhang Yujie's arms, and lovingly wiped the watery saliva from the corner of her mouth. "Do you know who that old man is?" Zhang Yujie asked teasingly. In order to make his daughter sleep more comfortably, Poplar Fruit moved his left and right hands to find the most suitable position to hug her. Then he said, "I know. Isn't he a designer of Givenchy? Is he very good?" Zhang Yujie saw that he was absent-minded, and she really wanted to give him a good knock on the head. "Of course he's very good. His surname is Givenchy. He's the chief designer of Asia. He's a descendant of Givenchy? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Not a descendant, but almost. Anyway, he's from that family, Zhang Yujie said. That's still very good. He's the chief designer of Asia. Poplar Fruit said. Yes, you're very good. Zhang Yujie patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and said with a smile, You actually got the recognition of a great designer, and he even rushed to cut clothes for you. That's a big honor. I'm just a person with a platinum card, and I'm not even qualified to meet him. Poplar Fruit teased her, What kind of platinum card do you have? You can't even find a platinum card. Zhang Yujie raised her eyebrows and glared at him. She gritted her teeth and said, I don't know which bastard stole my card. If I find out, I'll definitely strangle him to death. Time passed quickly as they chatted. After a while, Artel came out with the clothes with a smile on her face, and insisted that Poplar Fruit change into them. After Poplar Fruit changed into the clothes and walked out, he touched his chin and said proudly, It seems that I'm old, but my eyes haven't. They're still very accurate. He didn't use any tools just now. He measured the size of Poplar Fruit's clothes with just his eyes and hands. Not a bit more, not a bit less. Poplar Fruit put it on, and it fit him perfectly. The small flaw just now disappeared without a trace. Mr. Artel, you're really good. Poplar Fruit praised sincerely. There's an old saying in China that there's always a master in every profession. You're the master in the fashion industry. Artel smiled and said, You're flattering me. When it was time to pay the bill, Zhang Yujie took out a card. Poplar Fruit didn't let it go. He pressed her hands hard, then blocked her behind him and said, I have money. Why do I need you to pay for the clothes? Zhang Yujie pouted. She was very unhappy, but also helpless. Poplar Fruit took his card and walked to the cashier, only to be told that his clothes were free of charge. He turned around in surprise and saw Artel walking up to him with a smile on his face. Artel smiled and said, Mr. Leon, although this is the first time we've met, it's really nice to meet you. Take this set of clothes as a gift from me. How can I accept this? Poplar Fruit said, I can't accept it. This set of clothes is too expensive. Yes, it was really too expensive. Poplar Fruit had just glanced at the sample on display in the window. The price tag on it was more than 30,000 yuan. How can our friendship be measured by money? I designed and modified this suit. It's the best gift for a close friend. Please don't care about the price tag. It's just a number. The most important thing is the thought, said the old man, Artel, with his eyebrows furrowed and his eyes wide open. What he said is so reasonable that I have nothing to say. Poplar Fruit didn't know why such a thought popped up in his mind. He really couldn't think of any reason to refuse this lovely French old man. Perhaps his pursuit of art was where his self-worth lay. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to accept this expensive gift. However, in return, Poplar Fruit promised Artel that when Poplar Fruit had time, he would cooperate with Artel and let him design a set of clothes. After receiving Poplar Fruit's contact information, Artel smiled happily like a child. He said that if Poplar Fruit was willing to come, he would give him the best price. If Poplar Fruit couldn't go abroad, he could even live in Yongqing for a while. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, Don't talk about money. Mr. Artel, you said that we are friends. This is just the support between friends. Artel smiled and said, Of course, of course. The money is paid by Givenchy. If you don't accept it, you're not saving money for me, haha. After saying goodbye to Artel, Poplar Fruit walked out of Givenchy's store with Zhang Yujie, holding Kiki, who had just woken up, and carrying a large garment bag. Zhang Yujie suddenly patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder from behind. The sound of Poplar Fruit's muscles popping startled Kiki, who was still sleepy. She was startled. She put her arms around her father's neck and looked at him for a long time, but she still didn't understand what was going on. Poplar Fruit looked back at Zhang Yujie. Her right hand was stretched out, and her slightly red lips, which were covered with lipstick under her sunglasses, moved slightly. She said, Give it to me. Poplar Fruit knew what she was referring to. He hesitated for a moment, but still handed the garment bag to her. Although it was really not a problem for Poplar Fruit to hold Kiki and this small amount of clothes at the same time, he didn't want to refuse Zhang Yujie's kindness. From the moment they met until now, she had wanted to help Poplar Fruit many times, but Poplar Fruit wouldn't let her. Although she appreciated his kindness, if she kept pouring cold water on him, no matter how warm her heart was, it would still be cold. In order not to alienate her, Poplar Fruit asked Zhang Yujie to help him carry this light and large bag. Now that the two of them were walking together, with Kiki, who was hanging around her father's neck like a koala bear, it felt like a family going shopping. Along the way, they attracted a lot of attention, but Poplar Fruit didn't notice. He just laughed and teased Kiki, teaching her how to call him daddy. Chi-Chi would smack her lips for a while, and then she would grin and giggle for a while. Poplar Fruit was a little worried that she would want to drink milk when she woke up, so he couldn't help but walk faster. Zhang Yujie carried the large garment bag and walked step by step to Poplar Fruit's left. However, she was half a step slower than Poplar Fruit. She looked at him with a bit of bitterness in her eyes as she listened to him and Kiki's laughter. She felt a little unhappy and didn't know why she felt sad. As they walked, Zhang Yujie suddenly grabbed Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit turned around to look at her in confusion. Although Zhang Yujie was wearing sunglasses, Poplar Fruit could still feel the cold light from her golden lenses. Her face was tense, and her lips were slightly pursed. He could see that she was gnashing her teeth. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but shiver. Why was she so angry? Chapter 97. Zhang Yujie was about to get goosebumps. However, the target wasn't Poplar Fruit. Following Zhang Yujie's line of sight, Poplar Fruit saw a couple walking over from not too far away. The woman was beautiful and charming. Her clothes made her look very pure, like a college student who had yet to graduate. The man was tall and handsome, with a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. His face, which should have been very masculine, was now full of flattery. His left hand was around the girl's waist, gently stroking up and down. The thumb and index finger of his right hand were holding a card, and under the ring finger of his ring finger, the card spun up and down. Xiaomeng, I'll buy you clothes, okay? Have you heard of Givenchy? It's the most fashionable brand in France. Look, I even have a platinum card. When the time comes, we'll be able to enjoy VIP treatment. We'll have a row of saleswomen bring you clothes to choose from. I guarantee you'll like it. Is that okay? Come, give Big Brother a kiss. Good girl. The man's voice came from afar, and Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie heard it clearly. Poplar Fruit noticed that Zhang Yujie's face had turned even darker. He was confused. Could this man be Zhang Yujie's boyfriend? Oh, it could be. He looked a little young, so he should fit Zhang Yujie's criteria for a partner. Well, although Poplar Fruit was so slow that he didn't realize that she liked him, he didn't know why, but he felt that this good friend of his liked young boys. Of course, Poplar Fruit had never thought of himself as a young boy. Perhaps it was because of Kiki's birth that he felt that he had aged a lot. Was this the legendary melodramatic plot of cheating being discovered? They were still whispering sweet nothings to each other, immersed in the sweetness of each other's ears and temples. They didn't react to the gazes of the people outside. They were about to pass by Yonggua. Zhang Yujie had been holding it in for a long time, and finally exploded. She strode forward and twisted the man's ear with one hand. She roared like thunder, "Zhang Taiming!" Ouch, ouch. The man struggled in pain when his ear was pulled, but when he heard Zhang Yujie's roar, his legs went soft, and he almost fell to his knees. He finally turned around, and his expression became even more flattering. "Sis, you're here too. Good afternoon. Good afternoon." Sis? Poplar Fruit realized that he was wrong. They both had the surname, so they might really be brother and sister. "Humph, it's my fault," Zhang Yujie said coldly. Zhang Taiming's ears were being twisted by Zhang Yujie, so he could only beg for mercy. "Sister, let go of me first. Let's talk nicely." "Can we talk nicely?" Look, there are people watching. Don't make a fool of yourself. In the distance, 1 or 2 people turned their heads to take a look. However, when Zhang Taiming said that they were outsiders, he was referring to Yang Guo and Chi-Chi, who was in his arms. Kiki, who was hugging her father's neck, turned around and stared at Zhang Yujie's hand that was twisting Zhang Taiming's ear. Poplar Fruit saw it and quickly covered her eyes. He couldn't let his daughter learn to be violent. It wasn't good to casually twist other people's ears. Zhang Yujie let go of her hand, but before Zhang Yujie could straighten up, she turned around and gave him a knock on the head. Zhang Taiming hurriedly stood up and quietly took a step back to distance himself from Zhang Yujie. You've grown up, haven't you? Not only did you chase after girls, you even stole my card to show off. You've grown up, haven't you? Zhang Yujie put down the large bag and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She raised her head slightly and glared at Zhang Taiming. Zhang Taiming smiled embarrassedly. He moved to the side and hid the frightened Xiao Meng behind him. He didn't know how to respond. What's the point of using our family's money and your sister's card to chase after girls? If you have the guts, go earn it yourself. You're so extravagant when you're studying. See if I don't beat you to death. Zhang Yujie took off her sunglasses and glared. She raised her right hand and pretended to hit him. So Zhang Yujie's card couldn't be found because Zhang Taiming had secretly taken it to please her. Zhang Taiming was shocked when he saw that Zhang Yujie was about to hit him again. He quickly hid behind Xiao Meng and pressed his hands on Xiao Meng's shoulders, shrinking his head. A grown man actually relied on a woman to shelter him from the wind and rain. This younger brother of Zhang Yujie's was really something. Poplar Fruit was stunned. Zhang Taiming poked his head out from behind Xiao Meng and said guiltily, "Sis, don't hit me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." Zhang Yujie scolded him harshly 2 or 3 times before her expression softened. She introduced Poplar Fruit and Zhang Taiming to each other. However, just like in the store, Zhang Yujie only introduced Poplar Fruit's name and didn't mention anything about their relationship. Seeing that his plan to go shopping and chase after girls was ruined, Zhang Taiming could only take out a few hundred yuan and shove it to Xiao Meng so that she could take a taxi back to school. After sending Xiao Meng away, Zhang Taiming followed behind Zhang Yujie with a long face, waiting for her judgment. Zhang Yujie ignored him. She treated Zhang Taiming, who was following behind her like a little tail, as heir. She slowly talked to Poplar Fruit. As they chatted, Zhang Yujie suddenly stopped. She stood face to face with Poplar Fruit, with only Kiki between them. She put her left hand on Poplar Fruit's shoulder, then stood on her tiptoes and gently stroked Poplar Fruit's hair with her right hand. Zhang Taiming's eyes widened. What was going on? Your hair is too long. Zhang Yujie said softly. Her eyes met with Poplar Fruit's, and her voice was so gentle that it was like a different person from when she was scolding Zhang Taiming just now. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Yeah, I haven't cut my hair for more than 2 months." In these 2 months, he didn't care about his hairstyle. It was good enough that he could wash his hair every day. That won't do. Go get your hair done. It's not good if it's too messy. Zhang Yujie felt the hormones in Poplar Fruit's breath, and her face was a little hot. She let go of Poplar Fruit's hair, and her eyes were a little afraid to look at Poplar Fruit. Zhang Taiming was a little dizzy. He started to wonder if he wasn't awake and pinched his face. It hurt, so he wasn't dreaming. But what was with his sister's action and expression? Was she still his sister when she was so shy? He had never seen his sister use such an expression to face a man. She even used her hand to stroke his hair from the top of his head to the back of his ears. Wasn't this action only between lovers? But this man was carrying a child. Could it be? Thinking about how his sister hadn't returned home for almost a year, Zhang Taiming felt like thousands of grass-mud horses had stepped on him. It couldn't be what he thought it was, right? Zhang Taiming's forehead wrinkled so much that the wrinkles on his forehead were all twisted together. Poplar Fruit finally agreed to Zhang Yujie's arrangement. The 3 of them walked to a hair salon on the 9th floor. Zhang Yujie familiarly asked the very feminine hairstylist, Xiao Xiao, to design a hairstyle for Poplar Fruit. Xiao Xiao's eyes lit up when he saw Poplar Fruit. He pinched his orchid fingers and stroked the hair of Poplar Fruit, who was sitting on the chair. He coquettishly discussed with Poplar Fruit what hairstyle to give him. Enduring the disgust of being touched, Poplar Fruit glared at Zhang Yujie, who was secretly laughing at the side, and agreed with Xiao Xiao. Zhang Taiming was also looking at Zhang Yujie. He watched as Zhang Yujie hugged Kiki and teased her with a smile. He didn't know how to express the strangeness in his heart. Although there might be a problem with his sexual orientation, Xiao Xiao's craftsmanship wasn't just for show. He cut left and right, and the two small scissors were like butterflies flying up and down. Every time they stopped and flapped their wings, a few strands of hair would flutter down. This was also a person who had a persistent and even demanding pursuit of art. Although his movements were very fast, he would stop and look at it again after every dozen cuts. After washing the broken hair on his head, Xiao Xiao applied a hairstyling lotion on Poplar Fruit's hair. From time to time, he would take out the scissors and gently trim it. Finally, Xiao Xiao clapped his hands and put down the scissors. He took Poplar Fruit's arm and pulled him up. Then he pinched his orchid fingers with his other hand and pointed to the mirror. Half covering his mouth, he smiled and said, "Little brother Yang, look, isn't this hairstyle much better? It's really good." Poplar Fruit also sincerely praised himself. How should he describe it? Business style? Fashion style? None of them were suitable. Xiao Xiao didn't cut Poplar Fruit's most commonly used short hair. It wasn't the cool trendy hairstyle of the Korean celebrities either. Overall, it was still clean and refreshing short hair. The two sides of his temples were shorter, and the top of his head was slightly longer. However, the cut wasn't very thick. The hair was loosened and fixed with hair gel. It looked very sunny and fresh. However, there was still a short slanted fringe on his forehead. Together with Poplar Fruit's deep starry eyes, there was an indescribable devilish charm. "Kid, you're still very handsome." Poplar Fruit looked at himself in the mirror and was very satisfied. He also praised himself a little proudly in his heart. Which girl didn't like to be beautiful? Which guy didn't want to be handsome? Although he didn't have the habit of taking care of himself, it didn't mean that he didn't care. Zhang Taiming also realized that Poplar Fruit was very handsome after changing his hairstyle. Previously, when Poplar Fruit was carrying a baby in his arms, his gaze would always be involuntarily attracted to him. Now that he took a closer look, he realized that this man who might be having an affair with his sister was no ordinary person. At the very least, in terms of height and appearance, he was much more outstanding than himself. Poplar Fruit didn't want to fight with Zhang Yujie for the money for the hairstyle. Everyone was watching, and it wasn't good to argue. However, the price for the hairstyle in this kind of clubhouse wasn't low. Even though it was a VIP customer like Zhang Yujie, it still cost 1,666 yuan after a discount. This made Poplar Fruit speechless. To Poplar Fruit, with his current income, it wasn't that he couldn't afford such a service. However, as someone who grew up in the countryside, he had only cut hair in small salons that didn't cost more than 30 yuan for more than 20 years. This kind of extravagant lifestyle was too unreal. It was said that it was easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but difficult to go from extravagant to frugal. After enjoying an extravagant lifestyle, many people were unwilling to be poor. Even if they had to sell everything they had, even if they had to commit crimes, they still wanted to satisfy their desires. After experiencing such a seemingly carefree spending, although it wasn't his own money, could Poplar Fruit still maintain his pure heart? Who knew? Chapter 98. Night fell as scheduled. Poplar Fruit coaxed Kiki to sleep on the big bed. He took out his laptop and laid on the sofa in the living room to browse the web. He was making the final preparations for tomorrow's press conference. The curtains behind him had already been pulled open. The clean and transparent floor-to-ceiling glass was like a TV curtain wall. What was reflected on it was the beautiful night view of Beijing. Beijing's sky couldn't see the stars, but what was there to be regretful about? Looking at it, the neon lights were overflowing with color. It wasn't like the stars that couldn't be seen, but it was more dazzling. The slowly flowing river of light and the shining waterfall of light high up in the sky were like a painting of mountains and rivers drawn with light. It was so magnificent. Where there was light, there would be people gathering. Looking at the quiet old alley on the right, there was a glimmer of light, and sweaty hawkers were making the most famous snacks of old Beijing for the tourists who came from all over the world. Soy milk, fried tripe, fried liver, roast mutton, lamb scorpion, donkey rolls, scorched rice, rice snails, chestnut noodles, cornbread, and so on. There were many places with people. Ho-Hai, Sanlitun, and various other bars were filled with a large number of naughty people. Under the flickering lights, they were cheering, playing, and rocking. These were the places where the grassroots stars started. They were here to painstakingly pursue their dreams of music. If they did well, who knows when they would be discovered by a talent scout from a talent show. Becoming famous overnight wasn't just a legend described in books, wasn't it? But these didn't have much to do with Poplar Fruit. After admiring the night view for a moment, he left the hustle and bustle and immersed himself in his quiet preparation. Poplar Fruit's personality liked peace and quiet. In places like bars and nightclubs, he always felt uncomfortable. When he was in Yongcheng, he didn't go to these places, let alone in Beijing. But when he wanted to quietly read for a while, things always went against his wishes. Not only that, there was a bang-bang knocking on his door. When he opened the door, he found that it was the young man he saw this afternoon, Zhang Yujie's brother, Zhang Taiming. Zhang Taiming was sweating profusely. He was standing at the door carrying bags of things like he was fleeing. His handsome hairstyle from this afternoon was messed up for some reason. Poplar Fruit held back his laughter and let him in. Zhang Taiming walked back and forth to the door twice before he finished carrying the things. This was with the help of Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was surprised to find that the things Zhang Taiming brought were all baby products. What was the meaning of this? Before Poplar Fruit could ask, Zhang Taiming complained, "I'm really a prince's body but a servant's life. I don't have pocket money to spend and have to run errands for my sister. Brother Yang, my sister asked me to buy these and send them over." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly as he looked at the bags of imported milk powder that could last a few months. There were also all kinds of branded baby products. He had seen these things in the store before. They were extremely expensive, ranging from a few hundred to a few thousand. He waved his hand and said, "Zhang Taiming, you shouldn't have bought these things for me. This time I came to Beijing, I brought enough things. These are too expensive, I really can't accept them." "Hey, Brother Yang, don't refuse. Don't worry about whether it's expensive or not. It's not like you don't know my sister. She's a nouveau riche. She has nothing at home except for money. She would rather die than give me a little. I really don't know if my parents picked me up from the trash can. Why is the difference in treatment so big?" As he rambled on, Zhang Taiming realized that he had strayed off topic. He quickly returned to the topic at hand. "Anyway, just accept it. If you don't accept it, my sister will beat me up and say that I didn't treat you well." "She won't. Don't worry, I'll explain it to her. Take it back. Really, it's too expensive. Just a trip to Beijing and you're already spending so much money. I won't dare to come again next time." Poplar Fruit said. "It's better if you don't come," Zhang Taiming secretly said in his heart. However, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He laughed and said, "No way, Brother Yang. I worked so hard to bring it here and you want me to take it back? Moreover, these are all for children. I can't eat them if I bring them back. It's a waste to throw them away. Don't you think so? Just accept it." "AI." Poplar Fruit sighed and helplessly said, "Forget it. Just put it down. I'll talk to your sister later." Hee, that's right. If there's anything, just tell my sister. It's hard for me to be stuck in the middle. Alright, Brother Yang, you have to help me say a few good words to my sister. For the sake of my hard work." Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "She still hasn't forgiven you?" "Yes." When she left, her face was still gloomy. You don't know, but my sister's temper is very bad. Just a small matter and she would make a big fuss. That year, the Liu family's third son was smashed in the head by her with a beer bottle in a bar. It caused an uproar. In the entire Beijing courtyard, there's not a single child who hasn't been beaten by her. Zheng Taiming didn't know what he was thinking. He half-truthfully and half-falsely described his sister as a female demon. Is it that exaggerated? Poplar Fruit suspiciously asked. I think she's a pretty good person. AI, you haven't seen my sister when she was young. At that time, she was one of the 3 evil spirits in Beijing. That evil spirit was my sister. Us juniors weren't afraid of her. In the past few years, she has restrained herself a little, but she's still fierce. Zheng Taiming said with a little fear. Hee. Poplar Fruit didn't want to continue this conversation. He felt that it wasn't good to talk about others behind their backs. Moreover, he believed in his own eyes. What kind of person Zhang Yujie was, whether she was good or bad, he was confident that he could tell. Zhang Taiming saw that the effect wasn't obvious. He fiddled with a can of milk powder and rolled his eyes. When Poplar Fruit was pouring water for him, he pretended to casually say, Big Brother Yang, why did you bring the child to Beijing? Why didn't you let your wife take care of the child at home? It's inconvenient to have a child by your side. His words were actually a trap. Zhang Taiming wanted to ask about Poplar Fruit's specific situation to determine if his sister really secretly had a child with someone else. He knew that Zhang Yujie was very self-centered since she was young. She was especially disgusted with the various political marriages in large families. It wasn't hard to imagine that she would do such a thing. Hee, it's okay. Kiki has been by my side since she was born. Poplar Fruit replied. Zheng Taiming was stunned. Poplar Fruit avoided the important points and only answered one of his questions. However, the thing he wanted to know the most was ignored. Damn it, too cunning. Zhang Taiming said in his heart. In fact, Poplar Fruit wasn't so cunning. He didn't answer the question about Kiki's mother because he didn't want to tell the story of Wu Yu's death in childbirth to someone he wasn't familiar with. He also didn't want to waste his time explaining. However, Zhang Taiming didn't give up so easily. He talked about this and that and chatted with Poplar Fruit for a while. Then, he pretended to not care and asked, Oh yeah, Big Brother Yang, how long have you known my sister? How come I've never heard her mention you? Oh, we've only known each other for 2 months. She's been so busy recently. She didn't have time to tell you about her work. Poplar Fruit kindly explained for Zheng Yujie. Oh, I understand now. Zhang Taiming's heart was enlightened. They've only known each other for 2 months. Poplar Fruit's child is more than 2 months old. No matter how you look at it, it can't be considered as my sister's. Fortunately, if my sister was unmarried and had a child with another man, it would be a big scandal. This made Zheng Taiming breathe a sigh of relief. However, Zhang Taiming felt that things weren't so simple. Because from Zhang Yujie's performance this afternoon, their relationship was definitely not as simple as friends and colleagues. Or even if the man in front of me didn't have such thoughts, my sister definitely had thoughts. Also, such a tall and handsome man, and I heard that he's very outstanding. Which woman wouldn't be tempted? But this can't be. First of all, this man already has a child. Maybe he's someone with a family. Secondly, what kind of person is my sister? She's the princess of a big family. Although she's not a direct descendant, she's also deeply liked by my grandfather. It can be said that her life's marriage fate has been planned. How can she mess around with others? Even if Poplar Fruit didn't have any thoughts now, Zheng Taiming didn't dare to be careless. Because he knew that his sister was very beautiful, rich, and powerful. No man could refuse her pursuit. I can't let them develop like this, Zhang Taiming said in his heart. If it continues to develop, it'll be an ill-fated relationship. It's not good for anyone. Although Zhang Taiming was unrestrained in his love life, he knew the unspoken rules of the big clans like the back of his hand. Everyone enjoyed the benefits of the big clans, but everyone had to be a chess piece in the politics of the big clans. When necessary, they had to make sacrifices for the overall situation. He couldn't escape from it. He had been arranged to get married before he graduated from university. He had to get married after graduation. He hadn't seen the partner yet, and he had no feelings for her. But this was their life. Although Zhang Yujie was very strict with him, he still wanted to protect his sister who was directly related to him. He didn't want Zhang Yujie to go further and further on this wrong path. After considering his words, Zhang Taiming said, "It turns out that you have only known each other for such a short time. No wonder Brother Yang doesn't understand my sister's character, haha. But let me tell you, with my sister's bad temper, my brother-in-law will have a good time in the future." Zhang Taiming said, "Right, Brother Yang, you may not have seen my brother-in-law, right? He is also very handsome and gentle. He is my sister's childhood sweetheart. He was bullied by my sister since childhood. They just got engaged last year, haha." Poplar Fruit also laughed. There was an indescribable strangeness in his heart. It turns out that Zhang Yujie is engaged. But why is this kid telling me this? He is so outspoken and revealed his sister's scandal. If Zhang Yujie knew, she would beat him to death. Yes, if Zhang Yujie knew that Zhang Taiming was telling tales in front of Poplar Fruit, she would definitely beat him to death. What engagement last year? It was obviously under her strong opposition, and the engagement ceremony ended unhappily, okay? Sure enough, a younger brother is the most deceptive to his sister. Chapter 99. The press conference was held in the afternoon. In the morning, Poplar Fruit carried his daughter and took a taxi to Dongxin Publishing. He also pushed the baby stroller that Zhang Yujie had given him. Poplar Fruit planned to coax his daughter to sleep before going on stage. Then, he would let her sleep quietly in the stroller in another room and ask one of Zhang Yujie's female assistants to take care of her. The final arrangements were being made in the conference hall. As the only translator in the translation team to attend the press conference, Poplar Fruit was led by Zhang Yujie to meet with the editor-in-chief of Dongxin Publishing, Pang Yu. Pang Yu was the key person in introducing this book into China. Due to sect leader Qiao's careful planning, this biography strictly adhered to his confidentiality standards. This standard was so strict that the media did not get any data about the iPhone 4's shape and specifications before the press conference. Similarly, almost no one in the industry knew about the existence of this book. At the beginning of the year, a middleman secretly contacted Dongxin Publishing and asked if they were interested in importing this book. But when asked about the author, summary, and even publication date of this book, the middleman was tight-lipped and refused to reveal a single word. They did not know who the author was, nor did they know if the book was good or not. Importing such a book was a huge risk. Even Dongxin Publishing, which could import no less than 600 foreign language books every year, did not dare to be careless. Although there was the name of sect leader Qiao, Dongxin Publishing had already published no less than 10 books related to him. Although the sales were good, there were hidden dangers. For such a character who might have been overly discussed and researched, would his book still have any marketing value? No one dared to make this decision. The president, vice president, and editor-in-chief had a secret meeting to discuss it for a long time, but they could not come to a decision. In the end, Pang Yu gritted his teeth and suggested, "Let's take a gamble." Therefore, after some bidding, Dongxin Publishing won the only official biography of Steve Jobs. Even though he had obtained the book, the news was still a secret within the publishing house. Only a few people knew about it. At that time, Pang Yu was in charge of contacting the American publisher, Simon & Schuster. For this matter, he made 3 trips to the United States within 2 months. Even when it was time to recruit translators, the news had not spread. Even after that, the publication of this book had always been kept in a low-key state. Because of this confidentiality requirement, there was a story later on. When Pang Yu's father heard that the United States was going to publish sect leader Qiao's biography, he rushed home excitedly and suggested that Pang Yu quickly look into it. In the eyes of engineering students, Steve Jobs is the modern Edison and Da Vinci. In the end, he got the answer that Dongxin Publishing had already imported the Chinese version rights. He was very angry and questioned Pang Yu why he did not publicize it. He did not even wait for Pang Yu to explain before he left angrily. No matter what, Pang Yu definitely contributed a lot to the publication of this book by Dongxin Publishing. When he saw Pang Yu, Poplar Fruit realized that this masculine name belonged to a woman in her 50s. Her hair was a little white. Pang Yu was very enthusiastic about Poplar Fruit. She expressed her satisfaction with his translation to Poplar Fruit. I've seen it. Whether it's your translation or your editing, the quality of the translation is very high. It can be said that this is the best book published by Dongxin in the past 10 years. Pang Yu smiled and said, "Our Xiao Zheng did not waste his efforts." Haha. Poplar Fruit was a little flattered to be praised by a big shot in the publishing industry. Although he was a little excited, he still replied humbly. As she was busy with work, Pang Yu did not chat with Poplar Fruit for too long. In the end, she said a few words of encouragement to Poplar Fruit. It's normal to encounter some setbacks in the publication of a book. As long as you can overcome them, nothing will be a problem. A capable person will not be afraid of other people's doubts. Only a person who is willing to face challenges can be considered a real powerhouse. Poplar Fruit, I'm very optimistic about you. A person of Pang Yu's status would not be bothered by a little bit of trouble. What kind of petty tricks had she not seen before? The reason why she did not interfere was because she wanted to use the opportunity to train Zhang Yujie, whom she viewed as her junior. From the looks of it, the results were pretty good. After Pang Yu left, Zhang Yujie whispered to Poplar Fruit. "So you're from Xinda Company. Why didn't you tell me before?" Her body was very close to Poplar Fruit, but her hand was holding on to Poplar Fruit's waist. Her thumb and index finger were clamping onto a piece of soft meat as she said angrily. This action was a bit too much. Even a slow person like Poplar Fruit felt that something was wrong. But according to his way of thinking, he first reflected on himself. Yesterday, he knew that Zhang Yujie was an engaged person. He was so close to Zhang Yujie and acted so intimately. Would it have a bad influence on Zhang Yujie? Poplar Fruit, who thought that he was very considerate, quickly distanced himself from Zhang Yujie and asked in surprise, "Hey, how did you know?" "But you're wrong," Poplar Fruit, who loved to argue with words, corrected her. "The relationship between Xinda Company and me is not employer and employee. I only take translation tasks through Xinda Company." After being avoided by Poplar Fruit, Zhang Yujie's eyes were a bit gloomy. She thought that the relationship between the two of them had become closer, but it seemed that things were not going as smoothly as she thought. However, Zhang Yujie quickly recovered as if nothing had happened. She smiled sweetly and said, "I know, I've heard about Xinda Company's business model. Yesterday afternoon, their president Yao stood up to support you, making me mistakenly think that you're working for him." "President Yao? Is it President Yao Dehua?" Poplar Fruit said in surprise. "What's going on?" After Zhang Yujie's explanation, Poplar Fruit understood that the storm of public opinion that had just erupted the day before yesterday was actually a decision made by Yao Dehua yesterday. He talked to a few big newspapers that he had a good relationship with, and a few of them were mouthpieces of Guangdong province. Through them, he conveyed his support for Poplar Fruit to the outside world. Poplar Fruit found a newspaper, and the one that he was looking at was the Narrate Evening News, which was known for its bold words. On the 5th page, there was a huge headline, "Youth is not the measure of strength." The Narrate Evening News analyzed the matter regarding Poplar Fruit from two angles. On the one hand, through interviews with Yao Dehua and other key employees of Xinda Company, Translation Department, he learned about Yang Guo's true capabilities. Just like what Yao Dehua said, Yang Guo is the most talented translator I've ever seen. I've been in this industry for decades, and I've never admired or even worshipped anyone as much as I do. He deserves to be called the #1 gold medal translator in our company. With his capabilities, even in the translation world of Guangdong province, including the long-established translators of the older generation, Yang Guo can squeeze into the top 10. On the other hand, by tracing back to the beginning of this matter, they raised a question. Those who follow the trend, are your evaluation standards still stuck at the superficial age, qualifications, and reputation? How many of you have read Poplar Fruit's translations? If you haven't read the books, why are you so sure that he's not good at translating? You can criticize him because of his youth, but in my opinion, youth is his biggest asset. Yang Guo has unlimited potential. With his current strength, I can boldly say that he is destined to become a master. Yao Dehua gave a very high evaluation that might even lead to controversy. Don't worry, Yang Guo has a lot of potential. Naturally, the Nanyue Evening News would not listen to Yao Dehua's words. They even found the most famous translator in Guangdong Province through their own channels, the Dean of the School of Advanced Translation of Guangdong Province's Foreign Studies University, Yuan Chenghe. Yuan Chenghe looked at the materials provided by the Nanyue Evening News that Poplar Fruit had translated for the pharmaceutical company. He also gave a high evaluation, excellent quality, amazing, and rare. Although his evaluation wasn't as exaggerated as Yao Dehua's, his appreciation and praise for Poplar Fruit was obvious. In the end, the Nanyue Evening News stood from a neutral point of view and concluded, Poplar Fruit's strength and the quality of Steve Jobs' translation, let the facts speak for themselves. But there's no doubt that youth shouldn't be the yardstick for everyone's evaluation. Because of the reports in Guangdong Province, some unknown information about Poplar Fruit was revealed to the public. The situation on the internet had also quietly changed. The one-sided crusade weakened a lot, and more people chose to observe rationally. This also reduced the pressure on Dongxin Publishing's public relations department. There were countless people who added flowers to the brocade when they succeeded, and only when they were frustrated could they show their true feelings. Poplar Fruit was touched by Yao Dehua's support. Although his eyes were as calm as usual, his trembling hands couldn't hide his emotions. Poplar Fruit knew that Yao Dehua did not stand out to support him. Even if it was support, there was no need for him to go all out. By doing so, he brought a huge potential risk to himself and the company. Because if the quality of the translation after the release of sect leader Chao's biography was as bad as everyone suspected, then Yao Dehua would really become a big joke in the industry. Even Cinda Company's reputation and image would suffer a blow. Yao Dehua said that Poplar Fruit was the #1 person in Cinda Company, the leader of the gold medal translators. If Poplar Fruit was criticized by the public because of the translation of this book, then Cinda Company's strength would also be questioned by the customers. The translation industry wasn't big, and the slightest news would immediately spread to everyone's ears, not to mention such a hot topic in the country. Poplar Fruit didn't feel pressured by Yao Dehua's trust in him. Instead, he seemed to be encouraged and became more confident. Chapter 100. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Poplar Fruit coaxed his daughter to sleep after eating lunch. The press conference was expected to last for 2 hours. Kiki usually slept for 2 to 3 hours at noon, so 3 hours was enough for her to sleep now. In the dressing room, Poplar Fruit changed into Givenchy's formal attire. He declined the makeup artist's suggestion to put on some light makeup as he was particularly resistant to makeup. Perhaps it was because of the trauma he had when he was a child. At that time, all the children in the kindergarten were covered in a thick layer of powder. He still remembered that feeling of disgust. Perhaps the makeup artist saw that Poplar Fruit's complexion was not bad and was easy to talk to, so he smiled and let him go. After changing into his attire, Poplar Fruit's charm soared. When he walked out, he became the focus of the entire preparation room, especially the young girls and female staff. It was as if Poplar Fruit was a magical magnet. Once their eyes were glued to him, they could not look away. "Who is he?" The girls whispered to each other in 2s and 3s. "I think it's that translator called Poplar Fruit," someone said proudly. "He's Poplar Fruit? I didn't expect him to be so handsome." A few girls' eyes were almost curved into a heart shape. That's right. Don't you think he's so tall?" A few girls' attention was on Poplar Fruit's long legs. "I heard that it's most suitable for a boyfriend to be 18 centimeters taller than himself. He's the perfect Prince Charming. Handsome and tall. Hey, you're more than 18 centimeters, right? I think I'm the most suitable one. Hey, I don't think I can sleep tonight." A girl covered her burning face and said, "Xiao Yu, you perverted girl." Everyone laughed at her. A girl came over and giggled, "I say, don't even think about it. It's not your turn. I saw him carrying a child." "Ah, how can it be?" The girls had a look of disbelief. "He has a child at such a young age?" After receiving the affirmation from their companions, the girls' hearts were broken. "Why is it that every handsome guy we just met is already taken?" This was just a small episode that happened in the corner of the hall. Poplar Fruit had no idea that he had become the topic of discussion of those girls. After Poplar Fruit came out, he stood beside Zhang Yujie and listened to her arrangements. Zhang Yujie had also changed into a neat business attire. She wore a white shirt with a laced collar and a tight black skirt suit. Her curvy figure looked even hotter in the suit. Poplar Fruit was no saint. His gaze involuntarily drifted to Zhang Yujie's buttocks. He thought that he had done it discreetly, but women had the strongest sixth sense. How could Zhang Yujie not notice Poplar Fruit's little trick? However, she didn't show it. Not only was she not angry, but she was also overjoyed. "I knew you weren't Lu Xiaohui." To be appreciated by the person she liked, Zhang Yujie's heartfelt smile at this moment was just like the old saying, "A woman dresses up for herself." The reporters who had been taken to lunch by Dongxin Publishing's Public Relations Department returned to the hall of the press conference. Under the guidance of etiquette, they found their seats in their own newspapers and sat down. There was an unspoken rule in domestic news reports. Even Dongxin Publishing was no exception. The pockets of the reporters who returned were bulging. They had received a lot of benefits. There were so many newspapers present, and most of them had some relationship with Dongxin Publishing. Many of them patted their chests and promised that they wouldn't make things difficult for Dongxin Publishing. Therefore, there was no tense atmosphere at the press conference. Instead, most of the people were talking and laughing, as if they were attending a tea party. Poplar Fruit looked backstage and shook his head, feeling strange. "Don't worry." Zhang Yujie saw Poplar Fruit shaking his head and thought he was nervous. She squeezed his hand and said, "It's all according to the procedure. There won't be any problems." Poplar Fruit pulled his hand out of Zhang Yujie's soft palm, touched his nose, and said with a smile, "I'm not worried. It's just my first press conference. It feels a little unreal." Regardless of whether it was real or not, the press conference began as scheduled at 3:30 p.m. In addition to the protagonists Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie, there was also the president of Ingyan Network, Chen Fuzong, and the editor-in-chief of Dongxin Publishing, Pang Yu. Pang Yu was still a little worried. She was mainly present to support Zhang Yujie. Professor Luo Lin, a senior translator from Beijing Foreign Studies University, was also on the rostrum. He was a senior translator. His most famous translations were Milton's Paradise Lost, Paradise Restored, Samson, and other famous works. He was also quite famous in the translation industry. Dongxin Publishing's press conference this time was different from ordinary press conferences. In order to make people more convinced, they arranged a live Q&A environment with Professor Luo and Poplar Fruit. It was more useful to let the professionals give the correct evaluation. After a simple introduction, the press conference gradually went on the right track. Various newspapers reached out their hands and asked their own questions. In the beginning, they asked more questions about the biggest star in the arena, Pang Yu. Chief Editor Pang, we and most of the netizens have the same question. That is, how is the translation quality of the Chinese version of Steve Jobs' biography? A newspaper asked a very formal question. Pang Yu smiled and said, "Today's questions about Steve Jobs' biography should be answered by our deputy editor, Zhang Yujie, and our translation team leader, Poplar Fruit, but you asked the right person to ask this question. Who told me to be one of the few people who just happened to read the sample book. It can't be helped. I have been looking forward to this book for a long time. Don't blame me for being in a favorable position." Pang Yu's witty words caused the audience to laugh. "I'll evaluate it from the perspective of a book friend. I think this book is really good. It's true. At that time, I was fascinated by it. I couldn't help but call Yonghua and the others to translate faster, even though they were about to scold me to death. The audience burst into laughter again. I think the translation quality is good. Of course, this doesn't mean that my opinion is the truth. Translation has always been a matter of benevolence and wisdom. Whether it is good or not, and whether the readers like it or not, they still have to buy a copy and read it at home before they can make an evaluation. Pang Yu paused for a moment, then added, but the current situation is that many readers have not read the book yet, and they have already commented on the book. We don't support this approach. Deputy Editor Zheng, I have a question for you. A reporter raised his hand. After getting permission, he stood up and asked, we all know that at that time, there were thousands of applicants for the Translation Network's nationwide audition. But, with so many choices, why did you finally choose 4 translators who had no experience in translating long works? This question was not sharp, but it was within the expectations of Zhang Yujie. Zhang Yujie calmly picked up the microphone and replied, we have 2 criteria for choosing translators. First, the best. Translators who can pass our 3 rounds of auditions are people who have extraordinary attainments in English and Chinese. Second, the most suitable. Every translator can't grasp all the themes. For our biography of Steve Jobs, to be our translator, he must have a strong interest in electronic products. We don't need him to be a fan of Steve Jobs, but he must be able to understand the thoughts of Steve Jobs in this book. Otherwise, we will never feel at ease letting him be the messenger of information. Zhang Yujie said calmly. She was indeed from a big family. Even in front of so many cameras, she could still be calm and even exude an aura of confidence. So, we chose Poplar Fruit and 3 other translators. They are both excellent and competent for this task. Now, it seems that our choice is correct. Zhang Yujie said with a smile. We've heard about the crowdsourced translation of Steve Jobs' biography, he said. But, why not just 1 translator? Why did you choose 4 translators? We all know that everyone has their own habits when it comes to translating. Isn't Dongxin Publishing House afraid that there will be 4 different styles in one book? A newspaper asked. Actually, it's not like there's no precedent for choosing 4 translators to translate together. 2 years ago, Dongxin Publishing used the crowdsourced translation method to publish The Adventures of the Little Prince. Later on, the market response was good. So this time, we have experience to rely on. We are not blindly bold to use such an important book as our experimental field. Zhang Yujie said with a smile. Using 4 translators is actually our helplessness. Everyone knows that our book has more than 500,000 words, and it only took us 30 days to translate it. From the beginning, the foreign publishers did not leave us much time. Not to mention, there were all kinds of unexpected things that happened later on. In the end, the translation team was only left with 30 days. Speaking of this, Zhang Yujie remembered some interesting things when she urged Poplar Fruit to hand in the manuscript. Her heart was moved, but she did not show it on her face. In such a tight time, we can't give the book to one person to translate slowly. We can only use the crowdsourced method and gather everyone's strength to finish the translation before the deadline. Zhang Yujie said with a smile. If it weren't for the efforts of Poplar Fruit and the other 3 translators, we wouldn't have been able to catch up with the global release plan. And the readers who have been looking forward to this book for a long time wouldn't have been able to see the only official autobiography designated by Steve Jobs. Chapter 101. As for the problem of the translation style of Steve Jobs' biography being inconsistent, let's let Mr. Yang, Poplar Fruit, answer it for everyone. I think, other than him, no one is more qualified to answer this question. After Zhang Yujie finished speaking, she turned her head slightly and glanced at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled at her and nodded. Although the 2 of them did not discuss it before, at this moment, it was as if they were partners who had worked together countless times. They understood each other's meaning at a glance. Perhaps they were telepathic. Thank you. Poplar Fruit turned the head of the microphone to himself. Looking at so many people and cameras, he was a little nervous at first, and his voice trembled slightly. In order to hide his nervousness, he even patted the microphone, making a banging sound. The whole audience was looking at him. It was quiet, and the atmosphere was a little oppressive. After taking a deep breath, Poplar Fruit's beating heart calmed down. At first, he still followed the rules and read the script that he had already prepared. I can understand everyone's concerns. When I received the notification that I passed the assessment, I also hesitated for a long time because of this problem. Many of my reporter friends here may know that my main job is to take on translation tasks at Cinda Company. None of the tasks that I have done have been completed with others. This is the first time that I have translated with others, not to mention working with so many people. It was like chatting. Slowly, Yang's speech became smoother and smoother. But if you flip through the translated works of foreign literature, it's not hard to find that many of the translated works have 2 or more translators, and there are many excellent works between them. Later, after a month of translating, I realized that it wasn't impossible to work with others to achieve a unified style. In my opinion, literary translation can be divided into 2 styles. One is the style of words and sentences, and the other is the overall style of the translation. When talking about his field of expertise, Poplar Fruit's eyes began to flash with confidence, and the rhythm of his speech became clearer. Choosing words and making sentences. This style, or rather habit, is formed over a long period of time. It's very easy to be subtly influenced by one's past learning, life, work, and other experiences. Yang counted with her fingers. For example, the style of urban people who often use the internet and the older generation of scholars who only contact print media are obviously different. Another example is the style of people who dominate the financial industry and people who have been immersed in the IT industry for many years. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. As the saying goes, it is easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. I am most worried that it is difficult to reach a consensus. However, what surprised me was that in the translation team, the style of the 4 of us is actually not that different. Poplar Fruit turned to look at the others on the stage and said with a smile, I think I should thank Chief Editor Pang and Deputy Editor Zhang of Dongxin Publishing and President Chen of Ingyan Network. When the 2 of them cooperated to select translators, not only were the translators selected very excellent, but their styles were also very similar. In fact, this is not difficult to understand. The 4 of us are university graduates, and we have a good understanding of the technology industry and new things. For example, we are very interested in Apple and Steve Jobs himself. Of course, being interested in Steve Jobs does not mean that we are all hardcore fans of Steve Jobs. Let me tell you a secret here. One of the translators in our team is a Steve Jobs hater. He knows Steve Jobs' life like the back of his hand, but he often studies it with a critical eye. Poplar Fruit paused for a moment. Soft laughter came from the audience. He then said, however, this does not prevent us from having a pleasant conversation when translating this book. Moreover, we are all very young, and our knowledge comes not only from the books we have studied, but also from the internet. Most importantly, we are all very interested in English. I am ashamed to say that I am the only one who graduated from a professional class, but also the only one who has not obtained any translation certificate. Poplar Fruit pretended to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. Of course, everyone is an individual, and there will still be differences in the style of words and sentences. However, during the review process, I will correct the inconsistencies in everyone's translation and strive to maintain the overall style, Poplar Fruit said confidently. He raised 2 fingers and said, the second style is the overall style of the translation. What is the style of writing? For example, some authors have a literary style, either using poetry or a sad tone. Some authors have a refreshing style, which is very comfortable to read. Some writing styles are profound and obscure, and some are simple and easy to understand. Different styles of writing will give different feelings to the readers. You may have some misunderstandings in this regard. You may think that a translator's translation should be in this style or that style. Actually, this is wrong. Poplar Fruit said seriously, a qualified translator's style of writing will never be the same. 4 different source languages, especially literary works, translators will change their style of writing according to the style of the author. If it never changes, then the translator is not translating, but rewriting the original work. Yong's eloquence and assurance didn't make the reporters feel bored. In his field of expertise, he showed the demeanor of a master. The cadence of his voice and the simple explanation made everyone intoxicated. It was as if they were listening to Professor Yi Zhongtian's analysis of the Three Kingdoms. Even Professor Rowling, who was sitting next to him, nodded from time to time and showed an expression of agreement. Translating literary works and scientific documents are different concepts. The latter could be translated as long as one had a good command of English. This was because technical documents focused on conveying the meaning on the surface. There was no need to think about the style and wording of the translation. You could even use word-for-word translation. As long as the translation could be understood and accurately conveyed the information of the document, it was enough. However, literary works are different. We have a very famous translator called Nida. He proposed the functional equivalence translation theory. Translation is the most appropriate, natural, and equivalent language to reproduce the source language from semantics to style. This means that the translator has to consider whether the reader can get the same feeling as the original reader. So in addition to the meaning level, the translator also has to consider whether the style of writing matches the original author. After another long discussion, one of the reporters couldn't help but interrupt and ask, "Then how are you going to unify your writing style? Can you unify it just by saying it?" His voice was very abrupt and attracted everyone's attention. However, he raised his head and looked provocative. Finally, there was a different voice in the press conference. Poplar Fruit paused for a moment, but he still calmly said, "Thank you for the question. I would like to ask readers to rest assured that before we started the translation, we had many meetings and chose a language style that we all thought was most suitable for the translation. After talking for so long, you still didn't say anything. I think you guys can't even come up with a style. You're just a gigolo who relies on women, and you want to fool us?" said the reporter as he stood up and pointed at Poplar Fruit. As soon as his voice fell, the audience below the stage buzzed and became chaotic. The reporters in the audience were not stupid. It was obvious that someone invited him to cause trouble. Some of them were discussing the gossip behind the incident, and some were analyzing whether what he said made sense. "Everyone, quiet down." Pang Yu slammed the table and spoke into the microphone. She was indeed a senior editor-in-chief in the industry. With one sentence from her, everyone stopped the commotion and turned to look at her. "The first time you didn't raise your hand and asked questions without permission, I can forgive your ignorance. The second time, you went from bad to worse and spread rumors. You disregarded the order of the press conference. Where do you put your peers? Sorry, we don't welcome reporters like you. Security, please expel him from the venue." As soon as Pang Yu finished speaking, two burly security guards surrounded him and forcefully dragged him away. After the door of the venue was closed, Pang Yu's expression eased a little. She said, "Let's continue." Poplar Fruit was full of admiration. Pang Yu's aura was too strong. The entire venue was stunned by her, and no one dared to say a word. After receiving Pang Yu's signal, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Okay, let me explain to everyone why we chose this style of writing. The main reason is because the author, Mr. Isaacson, has a very plain style of writing. If you read his other biography, Franklin, you will know that Mr. Isaacson focused on readability. His language was simple and clear, and his reasoning was particularly clear. So we decided to continue the style of the original. If we chose a different style, like a romance novel, where the emotions are very strong, then the effect of the book would be distorted. You would even say that Steve Jobs is not like this. He is not an emotional person. So we will try our best to restore the authenticity of the original, and not adapt it with the unique literary style of Chinese." As Poplar Fruit spoke, the admiration in Professor Rollin's eyes became even stronger. The problem of different styles was solved very well from the very beginning. What impressed me even more was that as the translation deepened, everyone's cooperation became more and more tacit. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "This chapter is purely boasting. Don't think that it was copied and pasted from somewhere, and don't think that it is a real translation theory. Insiders, please laugh it off. Chapter 102. We are supporting each other and learning from each other. Under such a positive team atmosphere, everyone is progressing very quickly. There are fewer things that I need to correct. This feeling of working together to do something is really great. It can be said that without everyone working together, it is impossible for us to translate more than 500,000 words of biographical literature in a month. It is cooperation that makes miracles happen. Poplar Fruit said grandly. Poplar Fruit's sincere statement made some of the reporters below the stage couldn't help but applaud. The next few questions were very formulaic, and the few people on the stage also answered very casually. Poplar Fruit also met a few questions that he easily answered. However, it was obvious that not all of the reporters were here to support Dongshin Publishing. Some of them were dissatisfied with this kind of harmonious scene, so they wanted to dig out some exciting news. For example, the one who just stood up and asked seriously, "Mr. Poplar Fruit, you are indeed very handsome. However, you are the youngest, but you are the leader of the 4-person translation team. Is there any inside story? According to the news on the internet, you have a very special relationship with this young and beautiful deputy editor, Ms. Zhang Yujie. Is this the reason?" This reporter and the one who was kicked out just now were very likely to be in cahoots, but this one was very cunning. Every time he said something groundless, it was as if he was just helping the netizens to ask questions. Some of the more unpleasant words, such as unspoken rules, were replaced by vague words such as inside story. Moreover, with his serious look, it was hard to classify him as a troublemaker. Even though he knew what was going on, Pang Yu couldn't find a suitable excuse, so he couldn't do anything. At this time, it was up to Zhang Yujie and Poplar Fruit's ability to adapt. Zhang Yujie grabbed Poplar Fruit, who was about to respond, under the table. She turned the microphone in front of her and said with a faint smile, "I can answer this question. The inside story you mentioned doesn't exist at all. Rumors are just rumors. Our translator selection session was held together with Ingyen Web, and every session was supervised by a notary. President Chen of Ingyen Web can testify for us." "That's right." Chen Fuzong, the president of Ingyen Web, nodded slightly and spoke into the microphone. "Thank you," Zhang Yujie said. "After many rounds of selection, we chose Poplar Fruit, Guan Yandian, and 3 others. Among them, Poplar Fruit is the best." Even the professors who were invited by Dongshin Publishing House to be the judges felt that Yonggua's translation skills were far better than ordinary literary translators. She was not on the same level as the other 3. Therefore, after some discussion, we decided to invite Poplar Fruit to be the team leader of the 4-person translation team. Before this, I've never met Yonggua. One of us is in the capital, and the other is in Yongcheng. We're thousands of miles apart. How could there be such a ridiculous rumor? That's too ridiculous. Zhang Yujie was a little agitated at the end, but she quickly calmed down and continued. It turns out that Poplar Fruit is very qualified to be the team leader. Not only is the quantity and quality of his translations far better than the other team members, but he can also take a lot of time to answer questions for the other team members and guide them to do better. What surprised us even more was that after his initial review, the translation was almost perfect. We organized a review team of more than 10 people, but they weren't as efficient as him. My colleagues in the review team were worried that if Poplar Fruit was hired by us, they would lose their jobs. The audience burst into laughter, and a few reporters even applauded. However, the reporter who caused trouble didn't give up. He continued to point his blade at Poplar Fruit. "Mr. Poplar Fruit, since you are so outstanding, why didn't you choose to go to graduate school? Your major is English. Logically speaking, you should have no problem going to graduate school. However, among the 4 translation team members, you are the one with the lowest education level." This question was very sharp. Poplar Fruit held his breath and didn't know how to answer. This was because when he was in school, he wasn't as smart as he was now. At that time, it was impossible for him to go to graduate school. Therefore, he didn't take the risk of giving up his job to go to graduate school. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and replied, "At that time, I didn't have the intention to go to graduate school. I found a job and went to do it." "Do you mean that as long as you want to, getting into graduate school is not difficult?" the reporter asked with a twinkle in his eyes. He had been holding Poplar Fruit's transcript for a long time. This was obtained from the system through a person in the Academic Affairs Office of Higashiyama University. As long as Poplar Fruit gave a positive answer, he could use the headline, "Second-rate translator boasting shamelessly, dares to say graduate school is a piece of cake," to stir up trouble. Pang Yu understood this kind of language trap as soon as she heard it. Who was she? What kind of insidious questions had she not seen before? She took the microphone and said, "Okay, reporter, you have already asked 2 or 3 questions. You can take a break and leave this opportunity for others to ask questions, okay?" Although it was a negotiation, she said it so firmly that there was no room for negotiation. The reporter sat down unwillingly, but Poplar Fruit did not intend to fool around with this question. He first nodded to Pang Yu to express his gratitude, then turned to look at the reporter and said seriously, "The graduate school entrance examination is not a simple thing. I have never thought of it this way. However, I have always been confident in myself. I think that as long as I prepare with all my strength, whether it is me or the other candidates, we can all get the results we want." Even if he did not know what the reporter was up to, how could Poplar Fruit, who also wrote for a living, not be able to hear the trap in this question? Naturally, he would not act arrogant. His words were also very clever. He turned his confidence into encouragement for all the candidates and did not give the other party an excuse to create hype. However, this question did make Poplar Fruit think. Whether it was before working in a foreign trade company or now as a translator, he felt the importance of education. Taking the postgraduate entrance exam and studying for a postgraduate degree was no pressure for Yonghua at all. Since this was the case, why not spend some free time to take down this qualification that may be questioned by others? Poplar Fruit remembered that the application for the graduate school entrance examination did not close until the end of October. There were still a few days left. Could it be that he could take the last bus for this year's graduate school entrance examination? Poplar Fruit was multitasking and thought happily. Only Poplar Fruit dared and had the ability to multitask in this kind of situation. He did not know if Dongshin Publishing did something, but other than the 2 uncooperative reporters, the other reporters intentionally avoided Zhang Yujie. Poplar Fruit, who was very handsome and knowledgeable, gradually became the focus of the reporters. New questions came one after another. "Mr. Poplar Fruit, there are rumors on the internet that your previous results were not very good, but as the largest company in Guangdong's translation industry, Shinda Corporation, evaluated you as their best translator. We are all very curious. How did you get to your current level? Can you share with us?" a reporter asked. In fact, the rumors on the internet were that Poplar Fruit's previous results were very bad, but there was no evidence. But for the reporters, whether it was good or bad was just a matter of mouth. This reporter, who had been bribed by Dongshin Publishing House, only changed a few words, and the effect of his words was much gentler. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "My previous results were not very good. It was mainly because when I was in school, I was more playful and fell behind a lot of homework." His words were also half true. After all, he could not say that he did not know what he ate after graduation and suddenly became a genius. The main change was this year. "I have my own child, a lovely little fairy," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. When talking about Kiki, his face was full of happiness. "As a father, I can't fool with life anymore." There was a bit of an uproar when the audience heard that he had a child at such a young age. But at this time, everyone saw his happy face and felt a little touched. "I started to think about earning more money, because in this way, I can give her better quality milk powder, buy her softer and more comfortable clothes, and let her live in a better environment. But in order to have more time to accompany her, I quit my foreign trade job that requires me to travel everywhere. I can only go back to my professional work, translation. Translation is not a very good job to earn money. Take Shinda Company as an example. They receive the least commission, but if you want to earn more, you have to be more outstanding. Poplar Fruit said with a little nostalgia. So for my little fairy, I began to read the vocabulary books and translation theory books that used to make me sleepy. No matter how difficult it is, I have to force myself to work hard to be better. Fortunately, my memory is very good. Coupled with the fact that I am really devoted to learning, the speed of my progress is much faster than I thought. After a period of learning, I found that English is no longer a problem for me. I can easily read books in English, just like reading books in Chinese. There are no obstacles. So while trying to do some translation tasks, I continue to learn other people's translation cases and translation theories to enrich myself. President Yao of Shinda Company may think a little too highly of me, but I have indeed changed a lot compared to before. I will continue to work hard and strive to live up to President Yao's expectations of me. Poplar Fruit laughed. But this also shows that as long as everyone is willing to devote themselves to something, then you will definitely do very well, even beyond your own imagination. Never underestimate yourself. You are far better than you think. This chapter is still purely boasting. Don't think that it is copied and pasted from somewhere, and don't think that it is a real translation theory. Insiders, please laugh it off. Chapter 103. The first question and answer session of the press conference ended in a happy atmosphere. Yang Guo noticed that most of the reporters present were from official media, such as China Youth Daily, Beijing Daily, and so on. The questions they asked weren't as gossipy as the entertainment reporters. Naturally, they wouldn't ask tricky questions that put everyone on the spot. It seemed that the person who arranged this press conference was very skilled. Poplar Fruit sighed in his heart. He did not know if it was Zhang Yujie or someone else who was in charge. It was unlikely that it was Pang Yu. After all, he had a high status. The host did not let the atmosphere cool down. He joked around a bit and announced the start of the second segment. The second segment was a direct conversation with Professor Roland. The reason why Dongxin Publishing chose Professor Roland was because he was indeed an authoritative figure in the translation field. He had translated countless classics in his life, such as Milton's Paradise Lost, Paradise Restored, and Samson the Mighty, etc. He was also the vice president of the Beijing Translation Association. On the other hand, he was a translator who had received a lot of attention in the past 2 years. He had done a few episodes of Talking About Translation in a Simple Way on CCTV's popular Lecture Room program. He had done a thorough analysis of translation and was still talked about by people today. When Professor Roland stood up, the entire venue burst into thunderous applause. It was completely different from the treatment that Poplar Fruit received. Professor Roland stood up and nodded with a smile in response to everyone's enthusiasm. After the applause subsided, he picked up the microphone and said to all the reporters, "Thank you, everyone. I am very honored to be able to attend this press conference today." The reporters in the audience looked at him eagerly. They all knew that Professor Roland's habit of speaking was to first restrain himself and then restrain himself, or to put it another way, he liked to take a deep breath to whet everyone's appetite. He really did not feel comfortable talking about the cause and effect of a matter. Because, here, I am very likely to be able to personally witness, or rather let everyone witness, the rise of a rising star in the translation field. Professor Roland said with a smile. He looked at everyone's confused eyes and continued, "You don't believe me? Let me tell you a secret. Although I did not participate in the translation of Steve Jobs' biography, a week ago, I was asked by Dongxin Publishing to help them with the final review of the book. After reading this book, I have to give a thumbs up to the translation of this book." Professor Roland reached out his left hand and gave a thumbs up. There were a few soft chuckles in the audience. Some people will say, "Old man Roland, did you receive money to brag like this?" Professor Luo Lin said, "I can tell you that Professor Luo Lin has never received a single cent from anyone. In fact, this book is really well translated. It's the best translation I've seen in the market in the past 3 years. At one point, I even thought that some old guy in the translation industry couldn't stand the loneliness and came out to take on this job. But later, I realized that wasn't the case. So here, I have a question for Mr. Poplar Fruit. Professor Roland looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile. Poplar Fruit did not dare to be arrogant and quickly stood up respectfully. I am looking through the translated works of the four of you. If I don't look carefully, it is indeed difficult to find a difference in the style of the entire book. I am very curious. How did you do it? Professor Roland once talked about it on the show. When he said, "Look carefully," it was to the point of nitpicking. For a normal article, a teacher who studied linguistics to the point of perfection would be able to tell at a glance whether or not there was plagiarism. This was because there were too many flaws between the lines. Poplar Fruit said respectfully, "Thank you for the compliment, Professor Roland. The main reason why the style is uniform is because I review the translations of the team members every day. If there is anything that is not good enough or does not conform to the style that everyone has agreed on, I will help them correct it. Of course, after this, I will also have a meeting with them to summarize the problems found in the day. We will make fewer mistakes every day. Slowly, everyone will have a better understanding of each other." "You have a lot of work." Professor Roland sighed. "Just now, Deputy Editor Zhang said that you translated the most out of everyone. As far as I know, the others combined might not even be as much as you. How did you manage to take care of so many things? You have to know that reviewing a book requires a lot of time and effort." Poplar Fruit obviously would not be so stupid as to tell everyone that he could only sleep 3 hours a day. He pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, "It is okay. My translation speed is quite fast. Also, my memory is not bad. The entire book is imprinted in my mind and I remember the meaning. When I review a book, I only need to compare the information in my mind with the words. My speed is very fast." Professor Roland obviously did not come just to chat with Poplar Fruit. After chatting with Poplar Fruit for a while, he began to ask some professional questions to Poplar Fruit. Other than the translation theory, he also asked a lot of questions about Poplar Fruit's linguistic knowledge. Poplar Fruit answered very seriously. Many of the questions were very profound and were not knowledge that a graduate student could learn. If it were not for the fact that Poplar Fruit had read a lot of books and memorized a lot of obscure theories, he would have been tested by Professor Roland. Even so, Poplar Fruit still broke out in cold sweat. The more Professor Roland asked, the more excited he became. Poplar Fruit's fluency in answering questions aroused his curiosity. He really wanted to know the limits of this ridiculously young student in front of him. He had already forgotten all the requests that Pang Yu made when he invited him here. Poplar Fruit made him very satisfied. From the beginning of the conversation to the probing questions, the difficulty became higher and higher. Later on, the questions he asked were questions that even his own doctoral students might not be able to answer. However, Poplar Fruit was able to, calmly, answer them. If he did not think of the questions on the spot, Professor Roland would have suspected that this was all an act. At first, the reporters below the stage could still listen to the exchange between the two of them with great interest, but later on, they were all dumbfounded. Those theories could be understood if they were separated into individual words, but when they were put together, they were completely incomprehensible. However, even if they were confused, they were still convinced by Poplar Fruit. To be able to speak so confidently under Professor Roland's difficult test, this showed that Poplar Fruit was not as useless as the internet said. A person who is educated will naturally be talented. This sentence was most suitable for Poplar Fruit. When he answered Professor Roland's questions, the confident expression on his face gave people the illusion that Poplar Fruit was even better than Professor Roland. Of course, they quickly overturned this ridiculous idea of theirs. Yes, how could Poplar Fruit, who was not famous at all, be better than Professor Roland? However, they were certain of one thing, and that was that Poplar Fruit was indeed an excellent translator. Chapter 104. Professor Luo Lin did not continue to make things difficult for Yang Guo. He stopped his slightly out-of-control examination and said with a smile, "Let's get back to the topic. After reading your translation, I have a question. It's about a small paragraph in the book." He turned to look at Pang Yu and said with a smile, "Chief Editor Pang, the book hasn't been officially published yet. I wonder if it's all right if I bring that short paragraph here to talk about it? Pang Yu elegantly waved his hand and smiled. Originally, it's not allowed to reveal the contents of the book, but since the Xiao Duan is fine, I'll approve it. Professor Luo Lin smiled slyly and looked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit, you said before that you have an excellent memory. Do you still remember the farewell letter that Steve Jobs wrote to his wife? How could Poplar Fruit not remember? The whole book was in his head. He asked. Teacher Luo should be referring to chapter 39, the middle section on page 487, right? Oh, that's right. Professor Luo Lin thought for a moment. He could only vaguely remember that it was the chapter that Poplar Fruit was talking about. As for whether it was page 487, he could not remember at all. However, this was not a big problem. He smiled and said, Then can I trouble you to recite the original text and your translation? Once this was said, the audience began to discuss. They all shook their heads and felt that it was impossible. Unless it was agreed upon beforehand, how could anyone remember a few hundred words out of 500,000 words? Professor Luo Lin took out a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to a reporter from Beijing Daily. He said, Originally, I should be the one reading it out loud, but I came up with this little test on the spur of the moment. Now, I want this reporter to print out the original English text and Poplar Fruit's translation as witnesses. This is going to be interesting. The audience quieted down. All eyes were focused on Poplar Fruit, waiting to see how he would respond. However, Poplar Fruit was confident. He was not afraid at all. After all, his super memory was not for show. Poplar Fruit smiled. With his left hand behind his back and his right hand holding the microphone, he said with a nostalgic expression, We? Didn't know much about years ago. Poplar Fruit's English was an American accent. It did not have the so-called Chinese accent that gave people a noble feeling. However, Yongguo's pronunciation was very pleasant to the ears. It was like a gentle breeze brushing against a willow tree, gentle and clear. Many of the reporters in the audience were fans of American dramas. This was the first time they heard Poplar Fruit speak English. They did not feel that it was out of place. It was just like watching an American drama. Although they could not understand without subtitles, they could still feel that Poplar Fruit's English pronunciation was not worse than an authentic American. After reading the farewell letter in English, Poplar Fruit smiled and started reading his translation. 20 years ago, we did not know much about each other. Intuition led us to meet each other. You made me fall head over heels for you. On the day of Avani's wedding, it was snowing. Many years later, the children came to report. We went through good times and bad, but there was never a day when we did not cherish each other. Our love and respect for each other grew and intensified with each passing day. We went through too many things together. Now, we are back to the same place 20 years ago. As we grew older, our wisdom grew. Our faces and hearts were marked by time. We went through the joys, pains, secrets, and all kinds of wonderful things in life, but we are still together. I fell head over heels for you, and I still have not come back to my senses. Xiao Han's note. This is the translation of the Taiwanese version. The mainland version. Let's not criticize it. Let Poplar Fruit save it. The audience was silent. Poplar Fruit slowly put down the microphone. Only then did he hear the thunderous applause from the audience. This was the first time. The reporters gave him a round of applause. Of course, they were not impressed by Poplar Fruit's extraordinary memory. Perhaps they were impressed by the beautifully translated farewell letter. They were impressed by Steve Jobs' sincere love for his wife. At this time, the reporter who was holding the note exclaimed, Poplar Fruit memorized it without missing a word. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to this matter. Whether Poplar Fruit was acting or could really memorize it, it was not important. The important thing was that through the translation of Poplar Fruit's farewell letter, everyone realized that the quality of Poplar Fruit's translation was really good. Professor Luo Lin asked the staff to type the farewell letter in both Chinese and English on the big screen. He laughed and commented on it. but he was not satisfied. Immediately after, he threw out a new question, a new bombshell. The translation of this farewell letter is indeed very simple. The words used are very common, but it also deeply shows Steve Jobs' love for his wife. Poplar fruit, your translation skills are really good, Professor Llewellyn said. Poplar fruit was about to stand up to show modesty, but he waved his hand and tilted his head like an old urchin and said, I still want to test you on the spot. Let's see if you can translate this in a more emotional way. Pay attention. I want a prose style. Isn't this too difficult? Impromptu translation on the spot? Or does he want prose? Poplar fruit was stunned. This professor is not honest. Giving such a difficult question. Even the Ministry of Foreign Affairs translator might not be able to answer it, right? Poplar fruit obviously would not give up so easily. The harder the question, the more Poplar fruit's competitive spirit was aroused. He rested his chin on the microphone and pondered for less than 2 minutes. Then he looked up and calmly said, 20 years ago, we didn't know much about each other. We went where we wanted to go, where we wanted to go. You dazzled me, as if I were in the clouds. When we were married in Avani, snowflakes filled the sky. Time flies, the birth of our children, the good times, the hard times, are still fresh in our minds, and we have not experienced the hard times. Our love and respect for each other have been steeped and fermented through the years. We have weathered many storms together, and seen all the vicissitudes of the world. 20 years later, revisiting old places, we are older, wiser, and the marks of time have left wrinkles on our faces and hearts. We finally understand what the happiness, pain, secrets, and miracles of life mean. Because of this, we continue to live together hand in hand. As for me, who is in the clouds, my feet are the same as before, never stepping back into the world. Xiao Han's note. Nedison's version. Yongguo's voice was like a feather falling from the sky, swaying people's hearts. This translation was really too beautiful. It could even be said that it was as beautiful as a painting. Listening to it, it was imprinted in people's hearts. If this was not lyrical prose, then what could be considered lyrical prose? Poplar fruit's answer stunned the audience. Even the originator, Professor Rowling, was mesmerized by it. He even turned a deaf ear to the thunderous applause below the stage. He was still muttering to himself, savoring Poplar fruit's impromptu translation. A reporter below the stage could not help but ask, Mr. Poplar fruit, I think your translation is even more beautiful than the previous one. Why did you choose that one? Why didn't you translate it better? We all saw it, you could have done it better. That's right. The audience echoed one after another. Professor Rowling raised the microphone and smiled, Let me answer this question for Poplar fruit. Actually, Poplar fruit has already told everyone the answer to this question. The ultimate goal of translation is to convey the message the author wants to convey to the reader. Sometimes, we don't pursue the best and most beautiful translation because this kind of translation is not the most suitable. It may not be able to convey the original meaning the author wants to convey. Everyone, look at this article. This is Mr. Steve Jobs' farewell letter to his wife. Everyone knows Mr. Steve Jobs. He's a big entrepreneur and a leader in the science and technology industry. However, he has never been called a great writer. Can anyone expect him to write a brilliant article? That's obviously not realistic. Then let's think back. Poplar fruit's lyrical prose. If I told you that this was written by Steve Jobs, would you believe me? Yes, when we translate this farewell letter, not only do we have to express the love Steve Jobs wants to convey to his wife, but we also have to translate Steve Jobs' style of writing. This way, our readers won't feel that it's too abrupt. So, of the two translations just now, even though the latter one is more touching, if you all calm down and think about it, you'll realize that the one that really resembles the book is the one that Yongguo read first, said Professor Llewellyn with a straight face. After listening to his explanation, the reporters in the audience fell into deep thought. They all regained their calmness and carefully read it. Professor Rowling laughed and said, I've been the one asking all this time. Everyone might think that I've communicated with poplar fruit to deceive everyone. How about this? One of you can stand up and point out a literary genre for poplar fruit and let him read this farewell letter again. How about that? Poplar fruit was dizzy. This professor really can't stop playing. Doesn't he know that impromptu translation is a very taxing task? The audience was already bustling. Many people were eager to give it a try. On one hand, they really wanted to test poplar fruit. On the other hand, they also wanted to see if there were any other beautiful translations. In the end, a reporter from the Beijing Evening News came out on top. He stood up and said excitedly, "I want Mr. Yonghua to translate this farewell letter into a song poem." Song poem. Song poem. Are you sure your head didn't get squeezed by a door? Song poem. Poetry is one of the most difficult literary genres to translate in China. Although it's not translating poetry, translating a paragraph from English into Chinese and filling it in as a poem. Isn't this just tormenting people? But since Professor Rowling had already spoken, Poplar Fruit could only brace himself and do it. This time, he thought for a long time, spending a full 5 minutes. Just as the host was worried that Poplar Fruit wouldn't be able to read it and was about to smooth things over, Poplar Fruit suddenly raised his head. Poplar Fruit raised the microphone and smiled as he read, 20 years ago, before we knew each other. Our love for each other lingered in our dreams. Hand in hand, white snow as a witness. Many years passed in the snap of a finger, before our knees. Sorrow and joy depend on each other, inseparable and unchanging. Love like a boulder, mutual respect and humility. 20 years of experience, I'm old and wise. Love is like the first time we met, but my hair is white and my face is covered with dust. Through trials and tribulations, I share joy with you, smiling with thousands of true meanings. In heaven and earth, my infatuation is always with you. Xiao Han's Note, online version. Everyone in the room, including Professor Luo Lin, was stunned when they heard this. In ancient times, there was Chao Ji who wrote a poem in 7 steps. Today, there was Poplar Fruit who wrote a poem in 5 minutes. And it was translated. If it was said that everyone was just lamenting Poplar Fruit's quick thinking before, then now, everyone wanted to cut open Poplar Fruit to take a look. This was too monstrous. Chapter 105. After the press conference, the impatient Poplar Fruit did not wait for the reporters to leave. He excused himself from Pang Yu and the others and hurriedly left from the backstage. About 10 minutes ago, a staff member came over and handed him a note, saying that Kiki had woken up and was crying non-stop. At that moment, Poplar Fruit's heart flew away. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit's segment was over. After that, it was Pang Yu and Chen Fuzong from Ingyan Network to conclude. Otherwise, Poplar Fruit's answer would have been full of mistakes. Pang Yu and Chen Fuzong were still exchanging pleasantries. Zhang Yujie stood to the side absent-mindedly. Her eyes followed Poplar Fruit's back view as he left. She was a little reluctant to part with him. Poplar Fruit's performance earlier not only convinced the reporters, but even Zhang Yujie, who was sitting next to her, was mesmerized. As the saying goes, a scholar's temperament is a talent. The confident Poplar Fruit, who spoke with assurance, was outstanding even if he did not have a handsome appearance. As Pang Yu chatted, she caught a glimpse of Zhang Yujie's expression. She followed Zhang Yujie's gaze and happened to see Poplar Fruit's sleeve corner as he closed the door and left. She was experienced, so how could she not understand the subtlety of it? However, Pang Yu did not change her expression. She turned back and pretended that nothing had happened as she continued chatting with Chen Fuzong. She even smiled brightly from time to time. However, she sighed in her heart. Pang Yu and Zhang Yujie's mother were university classmates. It could be said that she had watched Zhang Yujie grow up. She knew Zhang Yujie's character very well. She was strong-minded and even a little rebellious. As long as she decided on something, even 10 mules would not be able to pull her back. If only Poplar Fruit didn't have a daughter. Pang Yu felt that it was a pity. She also thought highly of poplar fruit. At such a young age, he had already made great achievements in academics and translation. Moreover, he was tall and handsome. Not to mention Zhang Yujie, if she were 30 years younger, she would not be able to control herself. But so what? First of all, poplar fruit's background was mediocre. Even if he was handsome, he wouldn't be able to marry into a big family. What's more, Yang Guo already had a child. Not to mention the big families that wanted to save face, even if it was an ordinary family, they wouldn't be willing to marry their pure and innocent eldest daughter to him. So what if Zhang Yujie likes him? If this relationship continued, it would only be an ill-fated relationship. On the other hand, Poplar Fruit strode back to the side hall and opened the door. He thought that he would hear Kiki's earth-shattering cries, but he didn't. Poplar Fruit looked around and saw the assistant girl sitting in front of a wall-mounted TV with Kiki in her arms. Kiki was also watching with great interest. Poplar Fruit was stunned. Didn't they say that she was crying badly? Why wasn't there any movement at all? The sound of the door opening startled the assistant girl. She turned her head and saw Poplar Fruit. She quickly stood up. Kiki was still staring at the TV. Poplar Fruit looked at the TV carefully. It turned out that it was a video of his press conference. It could be seen in the side hall, and the assistant girl must have pressed the replay. Kiki! Poplar Fruit called softly. Kiki was stunned. She only reacted when Poplar Fruit called her a second time. She turned around and looked at Poplar Fruit in disbelief. Then she turned back to look at the TV. She finally confirmed that the person calling her now was her real father. Giggling, Kiki leaned her body towards her father and stretched out her arms. Poplar Fruit knew that Kiki wanted her father to hug her. Poplar Fruit's face also revealed a bright smile. He bent down slightly and hugged Kiki into his arms. The father and daughter's smiles complemented each other. It was as if the lights in the side hall dimmed a lot. The assistant girl smiled and said, "Just now, the baby was crying non-stop. Coincidentally, your speech was playing on the TV. When she heard your voice, she quieted down." Poplar Fruit kissed his daughter and smiled at the assistant girl. Yes, when she woke up and didn't see me, she would make a fuss. But this is also the first time I know that she can still see me on the TV as her father by her side. Maybe the quality of our TV is too good. It has a 1080p super high definition screen and restores your voice and image. The assistant girl said mischievously as if she was selling advertisements. Poplar Fruit couldn't stop laughing. There was a banquet in the evening. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter and pushed the baby stroller back to prepare. He really didn't rest for a minute the whole day. Back at the hotel, he first gave Kiki a bath and put on the fragrant talcum powder. Then he fed her dinner. Poplar Fruit didn't go through so much trouble. He didn't even change his clothes. He just washed his face and carried his daughter out. The clothes Kiki wore today were bought by Zhang Yujie. It was a white pleated dress, and it was very beautiful. It was a sharp contrast with her father's black suit. They were like a princess and a prince. When they were about to walk out of the hotel, Chi-Chi's small hands wrapped around Yongguo's neck. Her small mouth exhaled a fragrant breath as she moved closer to his ear and muttered the words she had just learned, "Daddy." Poplar Fruit only felt his heart was filled with happiness. He kept walking, but the smile on his face betrayed his mood. Zhang Yujie didn't come to pick him up because she was too busy. So, Poplar Fruit took a taxi to Quanjude. As a foodie who loved delicious food, Poplar Fruit had been admiring Beijing roast duck for a long time. It was just that he had never tried the authentic Quanjude roast duck. Quanjude could be said to be the origin of Quanjude. It had a history of more than 140 years. It could be said to be the most authentic of the authentic Quanjude. Looks like I am going to have a good meal today. Poplar Fruit thought happily. Although it had been through the baptism of wind and rain for more than 100 years, Quanjude still retained its traditional style. It had green brick floors, a wooden attic, a black lacquered counter, and a square table. The shop assistants in green shirts and hats were enthusiastically cheering in the endless stream of people. The continuous and energetic Beijing dialect made people feel that this was the real essence of Beijing. Under the guidance of a shop assistant, Poplar Fruit arrived at the Swallow Cloud Pavilion on the 3rd floor. It was a big banquet hall. In the middle of the hall was a huge round table with a dozen seats. The table was decorated with solid wood armchairs, square tables, and blue and white porcelain vases. It was simple but majestic. When Poplar Fruit and Kiki appeared, other than Pang Yu and Chen Fuzong, Zhang Yujie and a few other people in charge were already present. They were sitting on the solid wood armchairs, drinking tea and chatting. When they saw Poplar Fruit, they happily greeted him. Today, Poplar Fruit had left a deep impression on them. Although the final result wasn't out yet, based on their experience, there was an 80% to 90% chance that they would win this battle. And this hero naturally had to be Poplar Fruit. However, Poplar Fruit wasn't the focus of everyone's attention. Little Kiki, who was dressed like a princess, attracted everyone's attention. She could be said to be attractive to both men and women. She was beautiful and cute. Everyone gathered around and affectionately played with Kiki, wanting to hug her. However, Kiki only responded with a smile. If any of the aunties reached out to hug her, she wouldn't be happy. Everyone could only give up. However, their love for Kiki didn't decrease. Yang Guo was tall and strong. Even in the north, where most people were tall, he stood out like a crane among chickens. He was a head taller than everyone else, so he immediately saw Zhang Yujie, who was standing at the back and not joining in the fun. He smiled and gave her a thumbs up. He mouthed to Zhang Yujie, "Thank you." Zhang Yujie looked at him with shining eyes. The corner of her mouth revealed a trace of a sweet smile. Pang Yu was the last to arrive. However, she was still with Chen Fuzong and Dongxin Publishing's big boss, the president. The president was a busy person. He usually didn't attend banquets between employees. Because Pang Yu said that today's press conference was very successful, he came over to toast everyone. Chen Fuzong left with the president. Pang Yu stayed behind. She always got along well with the editors under her, so even though she was there, the atmosphere suddenly became lively after the president and the others left. While waiting for the dishes to be served, Pang Yu chatted with everyone about recent interesting things. She even went to Poplar Fruit's side to look at little Kiki. Previously, when she met Poplar Fruit, she only caught a glimpse. This time, she saw clearly. The baby is so beautiful. Pang Yu couldn't help but praise in her heart. This child must have inherited all of Poplar Fruit's good points. Pang Yu thought in her heart. She was still in swaddling clothes, but she could already see that she was a beauty. What would happen when she grew up? Could it be Xiao Yu's child? Pang Yu just had this thought in her heart, but she immediately rejected it. Although Zhang Yujie frequently went abroad for business trips a few years ago, and she would be gone for several months at a time, she always paid attention. It was impossible for her to not have any clues when it came to giving birth to a child. However, Zhang Yujie actually fell in love with a man who already had a child. This was something that Pang Yu never expected. Didn't she always have her eyes on the top of her head? There were so many young masters in Beijing, but none of them could enter her eyes? Shouldn't it be easier to lose points if they had a child? Pang Yu really couldn't figure it out. When she first saw Poplar Fruit, she still had some misgivings. However, when she saw the innocent and cute little Kiki, she also threw this thought out of her mind. She could only say that Kiki's charm was simply too amazing. The fragrant Beijing roast duck was quickly served. Poplar Fruit was already drooling. There were more women present, so they couldn't drink anymore. Thus, under Pang Yu's instructions, everyone started to eat heartily. Quanjude's roast duck was made by making a small hole in the duck's body. After removing the innards, they poured boiling water in. This way, the duck wouldn't be roasted dry. Furthermore, the roasted duck skin was thin and crispy. When dipped in white sugar, it had a unique flavor. The most common way to eat Beijing roast duck was to use a thin layer of skin to roll up the duck and green onions, dip them in a sweet sauce, and then chew on them. When Poplar Fruit saw the others eating this way, he also followed suit. In the end, he was stimulated by the spiciness of the northern green onions, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Even Kiki, who didn't know the truth, also giggled. Even so, Poplar Fruit wouldn't back down. In front of delicious food, what was this little bit of spiciness? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.